Genshin Impact has an undeniable focus on story and character. It's one of the few gacha games that actually has a living, breathing world with a lot of moving components. So today, I want to try and make that a little easier to digest. I want to create a timeline of events that covers everything that this story holds, from the main story quests to even the character and limited time event quests. While Genshin's story is great, they've managed to make the moving pieces a bit hard to piece together at times by having limited time events with important pieces of the puzzle, which means players starting now or in the future may miss out on some important plot or character moments. And a lot of people have said that that's a huge issue for them because they feel like they've missed out on important pieces. I also find that this game not allowing the player to watch cutscenes that they've already seen is a huge detriment. It means that some important information or character moments may be forgotten, especially since this is a live service game that will seemingly go on for a long time. Especially if they get Elon Musk on board. Alright guys, tweet and follow. So that's my mission. Well, not to get Elon involved in Genshin, but to try and create a comprehensive retelling of the events of this game. So this series will follow everything that the Traveler experiences. I mean, I won't be including everything. I mean, like, I don't know, the beach tennis event isn't in here. Aww. But I will be including anything that has an impact on the plot or characters so that everyone is on the same page. Also, I'll be taking some liberties with where some of these stories fit into a timeline. We don't have a comprehensive timeline of events in this game as of yet, so I'm going off of context, quest requirements like AR level and prerequisite missions, and the logic of event placements. Since we're already on the subject, let's just clear some things up about this video before we even begin. Since this is a timeline of events, the description of this video will have the timestamps to each section. So if you just want a refresher on what happened in a particular quest, you can just skip to that particular chapter. So let's say in the future we have like Jean Quest Part 8 or whatever. You can come back here to see how she developed and what happened in Part 1. Also, because of the annoying fact that you can't rewatch cutscenes, this means that this video will include many different video sources. There's currently no way to get footage of, say, the Unreconciled Stars event, so I had to get footage from already available sources on YouTube. The same is true for certain character quests since they require higher AR levels and I never recorded them when I started playing this game. So I just want to say, if you want to see the full events of these chapters, please check out the sources that I list in that particular section. I'm beyond thankful that people have put up the cutscenes of this game because without them, this video wouldn't have been able to include most event footage and would have taken a good few more months to release to get those character quest footage. And it's already taken quite some time. Because of the multiple video sources, this video will also include both Aether and Lumine as the main protagonist. Ultimately, I think this works though, since either can be chosen at the start of the game, and I don't want to claim that one is more canon as a protagonist than another. Because of this, I will just be referring to the protagonist as the Traveler. Also, because of the way that this game tells its story, I'll have to include some things that the game doesn't explicitly show at times, but instead just mentions. For example, in Chapter 1, Act 4, the characters speak of something that a player would only know if they read in-game books and watched promotional material for the game. So it's really important information, but the game doesn't have a specific chapter dedicated to introducing it. The same is true for the connective tissue between certain events in the game, which I also need to vocalize for some motivations to become apparent. For the video-only chapters, I'll make that clear in the description, so again, make sure to check that out. Oh, I also want to address that this video's long, but I tried to make it as succinct and well-paced as possible. While this video is long, it's also condensing 40-ish hours of cutscenes and story into around 4. And I would know this because I rewatched everything in the creation of this video, on 2x speed. I don't spend a lot of time on Hangouts. This is because of the nature of their decision-based storytelling. I decided to not make one particular route canon, and instead just decided to mention the meanings of the characters and the particular main plot that's dealt with in each of these routes. So this leads me to the most important thing. Your feedback. If you think something in this video doesn't particularly work, like an event should take place sooner than another, or that something important to the plot or a character wasn't discussed, please let me know in the comments. I've become kind of blind to this video now that I've spent so much time on it, so it will definitely help to see how other people see it. Also, obviously, if you like this video or it helped you in any way, I'd really appreciate a like. And I'm dedicated to making content on this game and its characters and world, so if you enjoy my style, don't hesitate to subscribe. I've got another channel dedicated to gaming and anime if you want to check that out as well. Every time I've played other gacha games, I've always wanted to see something like this. A timeline of events and an ability to go back in time and experience the story in the way that it was initially introduced. I didn't think it would consume months of my life to make, but I think it was worth it, and I'm proud of it. But ultimately, I hope that you like it and that it helps you. So if you're someone that skipped through the story and is now interested, or you're someone that wants a refresher on events, or someone that just missed an event or two, I want this video to be useful for you. So let's finally begin. This is the story of Genshin Impact, retold. Two meteors descend on an unknown land, and the story of world-traveling twins begins. On a beach, a mysterious traveler tells a floating companion of their hazy memories. Them and their sibling have the ability to travel between worlds, and they entered into this world, known as the world of Teyvat, some time ago. But the traveler's memories are broken. All they remember is coming to this world, but then needing to flee it for a forgotten reason. Their time in this world is blurred, but they remember what happened when they tried to flee it vividly.
But when you wanted to leave and go on to the next world, your path was blocked by some unknown god?
Outlanders, your journey ends here. Who are you? The sustainer of heavenly principles. The arrogation of mankind ends now.
After this encounter, the traveler awoke in this new land. They wandered the wilderness for some time until they came across a floating being named Paimon. After fishing her up? Due to saving Paimon's life from drowning, or like, I don't know, being eaten by a tuna or something, Paimon vows to be their travel guide across this unknown world. So, after 2 months traversing, and with their memories of events still hazy, and Paimon by their side as a guide, the traveler sets out across this land on a mission to find their missing sibling. On the outskirts of an unknown city, our pair happens upon a mysterious statue, which Paimon explains is a statue of the Seven. The Seven are the 7 gods which rule portions of this world of Teyvat. Each god represents, it is the embodiment of, an element. There's Animo, Pyro, Electro, Cryo, Dendro, Geo, and Hydro. The statue of the 7 that our party comes across is one that represents the god of Animo, known as Barbados. After coming in contact with the statue, though, the anima element is mysteriously transferred to the traveler, allowing them to manipulate the element at will. Paimon explains how this doesn't happen to just anyone, that you're not like the other girls, and it appears likely that this is due to the otherworldly nature of the traveler. Paimon tells the traveler that the nearby city of Mondstadt worships the god of Animo, Barbados, and perhaps they can get clues as to the whereabouts of the missing sibling there. But on their way to Mondstadt, they see a fucking dragon flying overhead. Once they catch up to its location, a mysterious bard is speaking to the dragon.
Don't be afraid. It's all right now. I'm back.
Is he talking to a dragon?
Who's there?
The dragon gets jump scared though and leaves behind a crimson tear. The pair takes it because they're fucking weird and continue onwards to the city. Suddenly a woman named Amber stops them. She explains that she's an outrider for the Knights of Favonius, which is essentially the guard of the city of Mondstadt. She inquires into the identity of the protagonist and Paimon, and the protagonist tells her their name, which is probably like, I don't know, ass butt or something.
That's what all the troublemakers say.
And the protagonist introduces Paimon as emergency food. Amber promises to put up some posters to help look for the missing sibling and wants the pair to come to the town with her because of the dangerousness of the dragon. Amber wields the power of Pyro, but not like the Traveler. Instead, Amber has an item called a vision, which allows a person who is bestowed one to use that specific element attached to it. After taking out some hilichurls around the city, which are closer than they should be because of how the dragon is affecting the ecosystem, the trio come across a teleport waypoint. These mysterious devices are apparently all over Teyvat and can be used as a means of traveling between each of them through teleportation. Once the crew enters the city, Amber gives a gift to the traveler, the Wind Glider. After trying it out, the weather changes, and the dragon from earlier, who we come to know as Storm Terror, arrives in the city, causing chaos. The traveler, being given a mysterious power from a stranger, is able to protect the city and quell the dragon's wrath. After the battle, the cavalry captain of the Knights of Favonius, named Kaeya, invites them back to the Knights' headquarters due to the traveler's skills in fending off the dragon. There they meet Jean, the acting Grand Master of the Knights of Favonius, and Lisa, a librarian who sexually harasses minors.
You're both so adorable.
Oh, are you sweeties here to help us out?
Get down to the ground!
They thank the protagonist and offer help with finding their sibling, but acknowledge that it will be impossible to do so when Storm Terror is continuing to attack the city. It's explained that Storm Terror's power is located within 4 temples, and that seizing these temples would weaken him. The Traveler and Paimon decide to help, and after making it to the first temple, it's explained that Storm Terror is one of the 4 winds, 4 entities which assisted the animal god, Barbados, with protecting Mondstadt. After conquering the second temple with Kaeya, the protagonists leave, but Kaeya realizes that some larger forces must be at play behind the scenes to cause Storm Terror and the temple's current state.
Thus you were behind this.
Knights of Favonius, always so inefficient.
Agree to disagree, but your involvement in this just made things a whole lot more interesting.
At the third and final temple, Lisa explains that Storm Terror's true name is Dvalin, and that its hatred for Mondstadt likely led to it becoming corrupted, and that's why they didn't need to tackle his own temple, because its power had already been consumed by said corruption. His hatred of Mondstadt started due to a battle that happened 500 years ago. Dvalin was injured during this battle with another dragon and had to go into hibernation. But once he awoke, the people of Mondstadt had forgotten him, and when he needed the Anima Archon the most, he vanished. After conquering the temple, the elemental flow around Mondstadt stabilizes, and the storms around the town stop. On their return to Mondstadt, the pair happens upon a dispute between Jean and a member of an envoy from a country called Snezhnaya, whose group goes by the name of the Fatui. The Fatui are in Mondstadt currently as diplomats and are pushing for the killing of Dvalin. The crew returns to the Knight's headquarters, and the Traveler and Paimon show Lisa and Jean the crystal that they had picked up from Dvalin. The crystal appears to have impurities that repel those with visions, but it doesn't affect the Traveler in the same way. Because of the Traveler's help so far and their great abilities, Jean grants the Traveler the title of Honorary Knight, in hopes that the Traveler continues to aid the nation with regards to their Dvalin problem. After leaving the headquarters, the pair notices the man in green that they had seen speaking to Dvalin from earlier. They give chase, and the Traveler reveals yet another unusual ability, Elemental Sight. It allows a Traveler to view the elements around them, and they use that power to follow the green-clad man. When they find him, they happen upon a tale of Dvalin.
What is to be sung transpired in days of yore, when the divine Archons still walked the earth. A dragon cast his curious gaze on the world below, as he parted from the heavens that gave his birth. The dragon sought truth amongst common folk, but mortal trifles only fogged his mind. The wind-born bard strummed his strings dolce, and the holy lyre answered his questions kind. The dragon was but a child, full of wonder, and soared the heavens free from care. The bard's songs invited him to sing along, for he yearned to let all perceive him fair. Enchanting legends the bard and dragon were, but the tides of despair soon engulfed the land. The lion fang perished, and the falcon flag slept, as a vile dragon approached Mondstadt in a low state. Over the cathedral loomed death and his friends. Of the people's agony, the bard soon sang. The soaring dragon heeded his grave calls, and amidst the windstorms a brutal war spread. Blood of venom sent the sky dragon into slumber, only to awake to be expelled in abhor. Why do people in this age loathe me so? But the holy lyre replied no more. Wrath and woe, vigor and venom, poured from the dragon's bitter eyes. The dragon's curse sprawled in silence, but the lyre could no longer soothe his cries.
The man in green explains that he's a bard, and that his name is Venti. The Traveler attempts to show Venti the corrupted crystal from earlier, due to Venti's connection with Dvalin, but the crystal is actually no longer corrupted, and it appears it was a tear all along. They're just walking around with tears. Venti shows that he also has a tear. A little weird, but alright. And it appears the Traveler has the ability to purify the corruption that consumes these tears. Yet another unusual power that the Traveler has compared to others in Teyvat. Venti says that he now has a plan to help a friend and goes to where the symbol of Mondstadt's hero is. After catching up to Venti, he explains that Dvalin's rage is not simply a product of hatred, but also a degradation caused by the venomous blood from his past battle with an evil dragon. And after waking up from its hibernation, the Abyss Order took advantage of said degradation to turn Dvalin against Mondstadt. Venti explains that the Abyss Order is an organization of non-humans who despise humankind, and that they often give orders to the Hilichurls. Venti says that he too was cursed and left to waste before returning to Mondstadt. He explains that he was also poisoned by Dvalin because of the Traveler startling him, and that he came to this tree to purify himself. He tells the Traveler that because they totally fucked up for existing earlier and fucked him from potentially helping Dvalin, that the Traveler has to act as an accomplice in theft by stealing the Holy Lyre from the cathedral in Mondstadt. The lyre was the one that the Anemo Archon, Barbados, used to play to Dvalin, and Venti thinks that it may be able to help cure him now. After trying to get it through normal means, such as Venti saying he's the Anemo god Barbados, and the Traveler attempting to use their knight status, both attempts fail. Venti won't be straight up with whether he's seriously a god or not, but because the Traveler is a cool cat, they decide to help him with getting the lyre anyway. But even though they Metal Gear Solid their way to it, a Fatui agent manages to snatch the lyre before they can. They hide in a tavern called Angel's Share, run by the man with the red hair from earlier. He decides to deceive the guards on their search for the Traveler, and we come to learn that this man's name is Diluc, a famous figure in Mondstadt due to his noble status and ownership of the Dawn Winery. He has a clear disdain for the Knights of Favonius and wishes to know what's going on with the Holy Lyre and the situation revolving it. It's all explained to Diluc, and Diluc contacts Jean, who he clearly has a history with, and the situation is also explained to her, that the Holy Lyre can potentially save Dvalin and stop the threat. Jean decides to join their efforts, but has to do so privately to save face with the Fatui diplomats. Jean explains that the Fatui seem to be after the power of the Anemo god, and that since they can't kill Dvalin, the only other way to affect the Anemo god's power would be to take the Holy Lyre. Venti thinks that the Fatui might think that they need the lyre to draw out the Anemo god, even though that god hasn't been seen in Mondstadt in nearly 1,000 years. The crew manages to find the Holy Lyre hidden away, guarded by a Fatui who says that a person named Signora will soon be after them. After returning to the tavern, the crew uses Dvalin's purified tears to restore some of the animal power of the Holy Lyre, but it's not enough, so they seek out more tears. Why not just watch a YouTube apology video? I
promised my dad I wasn't gonna cry.
On their hunt, Diluc explains that he hates the Fatui, since they're a threat to Mondstadt, and that he thinks that the knights are often too lenient on them and too diplomatic. Also, Diluc and Jean both had pet tortoises as children. It's important. Write that down. Tortoise. They find one tear in a ruin, but they also happen upon a large, powerful, robot-type enemy called a Ruin Guard. Ruin Guards are apparently often found wandering ruins, hence their name. Once the lyre is back at its full strength, Venti uses it to summon Dvalin and tries to talk him down.
What has been done cannot be undone.
Then why do I see sadness in your eyes? Sadness that speaks of your yearning for this song.
They are communicating. Huh?
No! Don't get bored!
Do not be fooled by him, dear dragon. He left you to rot alone. Now
listen to me!
To deceive you once more.
Barbados.
Let your wrath fester. Mondstadt has already turned its back on
you. You were planning this all along to have me slain by them.
Dvalin.
The time has come for the dragon to serve its true master. beware your magnetic cells. Watch the world tremble with fear.
Dvalin.
Afterward, Venti finally comes clean to the party and admits that he is in fact Barbatos. The liar is now beyond repair, and they all decide that they have to go after the Abyss Mages in order to save Dvalin. Diluc says that he'll use his contacts to try and find out where they are, and the crew decides to return to town and wait until Diluc sends word of his findings.
Your Highness, your humble servant returns. When your homeland returns to this world, we shall revel in its glory.
The next morning, while checking out the town of Mondstadt, the pair runs into Amber, who explains to them that they actually need a license to use the glider and that she forgot to tell them that the other day. Amber gives the pair what she believes to be a gliding manual, but it's in fact a story.
When the first wisp of wind brushed across the land, birds that yearned for the sky had wings, but no way to fly. They asked the animal god, "How can we reach the heavens?" To which the animal god replied, "You have yet to find that which is most important." As the god spoke, the wind thrust the seeds of a dandelion high into the sky. The birds thrust out their wings, but the breeze was all too mild, leaving them to stumble across the earth. So they went to the gorge, where the wind showed off its wild and incomparable strength. They threw themselves off the cliff and flapped their wings amongst the howling winds until they were able to fly freely in the sky. To the animal god they went to gleefully say, "We understand now. All we needed was a stronger wind to fly." In reply, the animal god said, "What you lacked was not wind, but courage. It is courage that has allowed you to become the first flying birds of this world."
When the pair returned to Amber, she explains that this was a storybook that she used to read as a child, and that the story was what truly made her want to learn how to glide when she was younger, and it had inspired her to become an outrider and the gliding champion of Mondstadt that she is today. She decides to conduct the gliding exam now, but during the final portion of the exam, a member of the Knights of Favonius stops the traveler, thinking they're a criminal by the name of Raptor, who's known for his gliding capabilities. Amber decides to track down this criminal, and the Traveler and Paimon decide to help. After locating the ruins that Raptor is hiding in, Amber declares that she will make this the final test for the license. And then they drop fucking bombs on Hilly Charles! This is actually the only time you do this, by the way. What's going on here? The group finds Raptor, but he's across a large gap between platforms. Amber uses her courage and trust in the wind to glide across this great distance, managing to make it across and capture Raptor in the process. You go, girl.
Yes! Yes, Gaga, you look so good!
After returning to Mondstadt, Amber honors her deal and grants the Traveler their gliding license. After helping Amber, the Traveler and Paimon receive an invitation to the Adventurers Guild due to them helping the Knights on numerous occasions. They arrive and meet the receptionist named Catherine, who explains that the guild is to help other adventurers gain experience in adventuring and to also help citizens with their problems in the process. The guild has hubs stationed all around Tevat, and she grants the Traveler entry into the guild as a member. Afterward, the Traveler meets a town alchemist named Timaeus, who asks for their assistance in crafting an alchemical furnace called the Elemental Crucible, and needs the Traveler's help due to the Traveler's special capabilities. And then they encounter a ton of network errors. Due to joining the Adventurers Guild, the Traveler and Paimon now have another means of searching for the missing sibling. After completing some missions for the guild within Mondstadt and helping Timaeus, the pair seek Kaeya, who explains that he has a problem that only the Traveler can solve, and that he can't tell anyone else. Kaeya tells the pair that his grandfather was actually a pirate, and that he inherited his eye patch from him. The pair thinks he's a fucking liar. He also says that he found clues to a treasure within his grandfather's notes. The treasure is supposedly a powerful sword dropped from Celestia, the home of the gods. His grandfather happened upon the sword, beat some powerful monsters with it, then hid it in a place known as the Arcadia Ruins. He explains that the sword is now in danger due to treasure hoarders, the name for a bandit group who use any means necessary to get what they want. The Traveler and Paimon decide to ask members of the newly joined Adventurers Guild if they've heard of these ruins, but treasure hoarders overhear their conversations. Kaeya then tells the pair that he got black market intel that someone knows where the ruins are located, and the duo go to meet with the informant. After following many leads and solving some riddles, they make it to the Arcadia Ruins. In the depths of the ruins, the treasure hoarder from earlier appears, wanting the sword. However, Kaeya reveals himself and says that the treasure hoarders outside have been arrested and that the sword was just a lie to lure all of them out. He rewards the duo and then leaves. Kaeya is a mysterious figure, and while it's clear that he currently has the best interests of Mondstadt in mind, there's also more to him than meets the eye. Get it? Meets the eye. Eye. Still with no word from Diluc, the party continues to come to understand the surrounding areas of Mondstadt. While adventuring in the forest around the city, a woman pulls them aside as she's trying to hunt local boar. Her name is Xiangling, and she reveals that she's a traveling cook from Liyue Harbor, the capital of Liyue, the nation of geo and contracts. The pair helps her hunt local beasts to create some new recipes, but due to hunting the local species, the hunters of Springvale, a local village, are pretty pissed, and so the group decides to go apologize. There they meet with Draff, the head of the hunters there, and explain the situation, but Draff takes this opportunity to try and get the group to promote his meat. He also asks them to promote his animal meat. Xiangling is apparently well known for her work at a restaurant named Wanmin Restaurant in Liyue Harbor. Xiangling declines to help Draff because Draff was telling her what to make, all Gordon Ramsay style.
You stuck-up precious little bitch!
And then Xiangling begins to follow a delicious scent. It's coming from the food being cooked by a chef named Brooke. They end up nerding out about food and decide to actually have a cook-off. The Traveler and Paimon help Xiangling with the collection of ingredients for the cook-off, but during their search they find a man in danger and help him. His name is Olaf, and he states that he was chasing a boar until he ran into a monster known as a cryo-regisvine and was frozen by it. Xiangling decides she wants to eat the damn thing and use it in the cook-off, so the crew takes the Regisvine down. They find a frozen boar near the monster, but it's from an extinct species from 300 years ago. That's so cold. They take the meat and return to Springvale. There though, Olaf is clearly confused, and while speaking with Draff, realizes that he was also frozen for 300 years, like the boar. Olaf begins to grasp that all of his family and friends are now gone, and that he'll never see his loved ones again. Oh shit, we've got a cook-off to go to, let's go! The Traveler and Paimon are thrust into the role of Xiangling's assistants during the cook-off. With the use of Xiangling's passion, an extinct boar, which should be an illegal ingredient here, let's just be honest, and the power of cooking, the trio win. Everyone enjoys the food, Olaf continues to have an existential crisis, and Xiangling promises to see them again and cook for them in the future, continuing on her journey as a wandering chef. The pair decides to head to the Mondstadt library to learn more about the history of the location and this world when they happen upon Lisa, who's currently Mondstadt's most wanted.
Come in! We know you're in the library with children!
Lisa suggests that the pair check out the book entitled The Teyvat Travel Guide, but it appears that someone borrowed the book and now it's overdue, along with a few others. Lisa asks for their help in retrieving the overdue books, so the three go to pick up the books from those fucking criminals. After picking up a few of the books, an individual has had one stolen, a book titled The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies, Volume 1. But since Lisa attaches a unique elemental marker on each book, the group is able to track it down to a ruin, which leads the group to an abyss mage hideout and the mage itself who stole the book. The mage explains how the book hides a secret, but not what the secret is. After dealing with the mage and retrieving the book, Lisa lets the pair have it to unearth its secrets, and once they return to the library, she gives them their copy of the Teyvat Travel Guide, Volume 1. The pair read the books, and while The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies book is cryptic, the Teyvat Travel Guide is a much easier read. It tells of the adventures of a woman named Alice within Mondstadt and her cataloging and discussing each of Mondstadt's surrounding areas. She also sounds pretty crazy and loves explosions. The Traveler and Paimon finally get word from Diluc, so they meet up with him, Venti, and Jean at his winery. Venti explains that he's the weakest Archon among the 7 that currently exist because he's been away for so long, and that he wished for Mondstadt to be a free nation without a ruler. The group finally tracks down the Abyss Mage and defeats it. Doing so restores the connection between Venti and Dvalin, and with this connection restored, Venti is able to get the group into Storm Terror's lair, a ruin of a past city that was mentioned in the Teyvat Travel Guide as Old Mondstadt. The plan is to have the Traveler purify Dvalin, just like how they purified the Tears. The group infiltrates the ruins and makes it to the top of the tower, where a decrepit ruin guard lies, seemingly inactive, so it currently poses no risk. Venti promises to infuse the Traveler with the same energy that he had done when Dvalin attacked the city, revealing that he was the mysterious voice that the pair heard. The four fight for Dvalin's freedom from the Abyss Order, and manage to bring him back to his senses.
This place is gonna collapse!
It's been a while since we flew like this together. Huh, Dvalin?
Just now. Why? Why did you not ask me to protect you like the last time?
Me not wanting you to listen to the Abyss Order doesn't mean that you have to listen to me. Freedom, if demanded of you by an Archon, is really no freedom at all.
Is this the power of the Animal Archon? But I am no longer part of the Four Winds.
Even if that's so, you still protected us regardless. Now spread your wings of freedom and go with my blessing.
And so, the Storm Terror threat was quelled. I clarified the misunderstanding to the citizens of Mondstadt, and let them know that they are safe. To them, it seems Storm Terror attacked Mondstadt out of nowhere, and then vanished just as quickly. They must be finding the whole ordeal very confusing.
However, winds change their course. Someday, they will blow towards a brighter future.
The next day, while back in the city, Amber explains to the pair that, while they were all off dealing with the Dvalin problem, monsters had made a coordinated effort, on the city, which it seems was the doings of the Abyss Order. Amber has been making preparations for a particular event like this, though, as she had been noticing the Hilichurl camps were getting closer and closer to the city, so they were actually able to quell the threat. Amber invites the party to a meal, and while waiting for her, they come across Kaeya. Kaeya explains that while the others, like Amber, were outside dealing with the monster threat, he was inside the city because he knew there must have been a larger plot at hand. He held off Abyss mages that had infiltrated the city and managed to get intel out of them, that the Abyss Order has a single leader who was the one who plotted everything with regards to Dvalin's corruption. The leader is referred to as royalty. While sitting down eating a meal with Amber, it's decided that the pair must leave Mondstadt soon, as they've yet to find any traces of the traveler's missing sibling here in Mondstadt. The pair then meets up with Jean, who asks them to head to the cathedral. The pair meets Barbara, the deaconess of the church, who wishes to retrieve the holy lyre from them, but obviously it's all busted and Barbara shits her pants from seeing it. Venti fixes the lyre and the group rushes out of there faster than I finish this sentence.
At last, Mondstadt's rodent ruler in the flesh. Scurrying through the streets looking for leftovers? Mondstadt calls this a god?
Resident rodent beats invasive vermin.
Don't you dare speak back to me, insolent bard. Absentee Archon of Mondstadt. How impotent you've become.
That smirk you wear looks out of place. Did you steal it from your master's face?
Should have held your tongue. So, this is a gnosis, Wouldn't be caught dead wearing this ugly thing in public.
Beauty is a waste when the beholder has no taste. Venti!
Well, we have what we came here for. Come, before our dear Favonian friends arrive. Leave nothing for them to find.
Barbara awakens the duo, and they go to the symbol of Mondstadt's hero to find Venti healing from the encounter. The pair ask Venti what a gnosis is, and Venti begins to explain. He explains that a vision is a gift from the gods that allows the individual to potentially attain godhood and ascend to Celestia, and that people with said visions are referred to as allogenes. Allogens? Aladdin? Only Archons know that term, and only Archons have gnosises. Gnoses? Only Archons have a gnosis. A gnosis is an internal magical focus that connects directly with Celestia itself. Again, the land of the gods. The person who stole the gnosis from Venti is Signora, who's from the land of Snezhnaya, the land ruled by the Cryo Archon. Signora is a member of the Harbingers, an elite group within the Fatui, who have immense powers and have been given wide authority by the Cryo Archon, known as a Tsaritsa. Because of this, it appears that it was the Tsaritsa's doing in stealing Venti's gnosis. Venti explains that he knew her quite well back in the day, but after a certain catastrophe happened 500 years ago, she cut off all ties with him. Venti then tells the pair that if they're looking to meet the god that they've been referring to, then they should start with seeing the Geo Archon in the neighboring nation of Liyue. This is because the Geo Archon descends upon the nation every year in Liyue to give divine predictions, and that time is nearing. Venti bids them farewell for now and tells them to take in every detail of this world, that it's about the journey, not the destination, and that it was the friends we made along the way. Aww. With Mondstadt now in peace and quite some time before the Rite of Dissension in Liyue, the Traveler and Paimon decide to explore the city more. They spend time getting to know Barbara, who reveals that she's Jean's sister, and she shares her feelings over newfound popularity due to her excellent singing voice and a rabid fandom due to it. They meet Drafts, the hunter from Springvale's daughter, named Diona. She's a bartender at Cat's Tail who absolutely despises alcohol. They also meet a young man who was raised by and is in the Adventurers Guild, named Bennett, who also asks the Traveler for their time. He struggles with an almost curse-like streak of bad luck, and the Traveler spends time helping him with that. Finally, they meet Noelle, a maid for the Knights of Favonius who seeks out the assistance from the Traveler in her training to become an official knight. While gathering materials for their journey to Liyue near a place called Wolvendom, the pair is then ambushed by a group of slimes. Slimes being pure elemental beings. Suddenly, a mysterious, disheveled young man appears and protects them. The boy speaks in broken English and tells the pair that they smell like the Knights of Favonius, who are his friends. He introduces himself as Razor, a boy raised by wolves. He mentions how a red Bernie girl often causes fires within their forest and then leaves at the behest of other wolves. The pair suspects that the girl Razor described as Amber, and when they go to ask her, she explains that there are other girls dressed in red. How fucking dumb is it that the pair would assume that every person who's in red is her? Oh my god.
I'm actually fucking fuming right now.
She explains how wolves have recently been attacking carts outside of their normal habitat. They decide to help her with this mystery of the wolves, and during their investigation, they learn that the wolves had attacked Springvale. When speaking to Draff and investigating the town, it appears throughout that no one was injured from the wolves, and that the wolves came from Wolvendom. Even though nobody was injured, some of the townspeople are still pretty mad about it. In Wolvendom, the trio run into Razor and he warns of bad people coming. He smells blood, and it appears to be wolf blood near an injured wolf. He claims it's from his Lupical, which is a term used for a familial connection between humans and wolves. Or wolves and humans, if we're being specially correct. Look, I'm not speciest, okay? Just those fucking squirrels deserve to die! Amber questions whether Razor and his pack are the ones who attacked Springvale, but he denies the claims and states that it was from a pack that isn't native to the area. In order to help save the injured wolf, Razor takes the gang into the center of the forest and treats it with a technique that he says he learned from the purple teacher, which is seemingly Lisa? I mean, it's either her or Tinky Winky.
I'm
actually fucking fuming right now.
The two angry townspeople appear and their appearance awakens a large, white, ethereal wolf. The wolf clearly knows Razor, and Razor and the trio battle the wolf for the protection of the humans. Afterward, we come to know the wolf as Andreas, another of the four winds of Mondstadt, much like that of Dvalin. Andreas tells Razor that the matter of the other wolves entering into Wolvendom is for the wolves to deal with, and not Razor, since he's just a human. Even though Razor protests, telling him that he doesn't fit in with other people, Andreas tells him to stay out of it. Andreas tells the Traveler that they're above other humans, clearly, and that they could train together whenever the Traveler wants, and then he leaves. Amber invites Razor back to the city, but Razor declines. Unable to really find his place in the world, Razor leaves, but thanks the group, returning to the forest, where he feels most at home. While in town, the pair begins to hear about a debate over who the strongest fighter in Mondstadt is. The top three choices are the Dandelion Knight being Jean, the Darknight hero, and a girl in red, similar to the description given by Razor from earlier. The pair seeks out Jean to solve the mystery of the girl in red and runs into a little girl named Klee who appears to actually fit the description. She has a map to buried treasure that she herself buried and asks the pair to help her find it, and so they do. At the spot, they find an Abyss Mage who now has the treasure. They chase after the Abyss Mage and into its domain. Within the domain, Klee shows that looks can be deceiving, as she's actually incredibly powerful and commands explosions with expertise. They catch up to the mage, who says that the treasure he stole is the most powerful treasure in all of Mondstadt, but when the mage touches it, it explodes and kills him. Klee turns herself in to Jean, as it appears the Knights of Favonius look after her, and she herself is one of them. And Jean is all like, you killed a bad guy, so whatever. Klee appears to be the only one with morals here, but I digress. Klee goes to solitary confinement for trying to blow shit up, and the pair leave. The Traveler and Paimon go to check in on Timaeus to see how his work is going, but he's not there. Instead, it's a woman by the name of Sucrose. She says that she's the assistant of a man named Albedo, and that Albedo called Timaeus away for work. Sucrose isn't the absolute best at interacting with people, unless it's about research or alchemy. Sucrose already knows who the Traveler is, as word of their victory over Dvalin is now common knowledge in Mondstadt. She says that the Traveler may be able to help Albedo in some research. Albedo is the chief alchemist of the Knights of Favonius, and the teacher of Timaeus and Sucrose. He investigates the truth of the world. The pair head to Dragonspine, a snow-drenched mountainous region of Mondstadt, to meet with Albedo, and at the entrance to the region, they happen upon a conversation between Barbara and another member of the church. The other person seems cold and distant, and she elicits rage in the Genshin fanbase.
Why miHoYo gotta be bothered about such thing? Everyone likes this, so why would they do this? Their pubes, I want my big nuns are already.
Once Barbara leaves, the woman, named Rosaria, decides to join the two in looking for Albedo. The gang finds Albedo sketching on the mountain, and Rosaria mentions how Albedo loves sketching, and is likely the reason for him being in the mountains. She then decides to leave without saying much to Albedo. Albedo, much like Sucrose and Rosaria, already knows of the Traveler, but he's also able to deduce that the Traveler is from another world due to their abnormal abilities. Albedo is so skilled in alchemy that he's able to manipulate the life cycle of plants, but there's a seed in his possession which he can't seem to change. It's a seed from another world. He promises to help the Traveler if they can assist him in solving this mystery of the seed. As the group continues, Rosaria watches from a distance, thinking that this group may be a danger to Mondstadt. Albedo is clearly a quick thinker and is even able to see through Paimon by bribing her with food. Albedo says that he occasionally looks after a child, but that he's better at alchemy than that. His first research was on elements and visions, but the Traveler being able to manipulate elements without a vision is really peculiar to him. He first thinks it might be Paimon channeling the power to the Traveler, but that would have to mean that Paimon was extremely powerful. But she's not, right? Right? So he puts the Traveler to some tests, such as fighting slimes and drinking a potion to determine elemental flow within their body. But both tests show that the Traveler is similar to everyone else in Teyvat. Albedo says that that's good, that being different doesn't allow you to connect with others anyway, because it would be almost impossible for other people to understand you. Damn, Albedo, you need a moment? Albedo tries to then get the Traveler to channel elements into cooking to see if it changes anything, but again, no unusual results. Albedo has lost some items too and uses that as another experiment for the Traveler. The Traveler uses elemental sight and is able to find them. Albedo tells the pair that while it is rare, elemental sight is an ability that some do have in Teyvat, so it's not abnormal. Finally, they perform physical and intelligence tests. At the intelligence test, they find a language that Albedo says appears all over Teyvat, but has yet to be deciphered. Albedo returns to his camp, and Rosaria appears and questions the pair. She's seen everything that they've done, and thinks that they're being way too naive to trust Albedo. She copies the symbols on the wall and leaves after telling them to not trust Albedo so easily. Albedo reveals the conclusions to his research, and it's that the Traveler is a total normie. But Albedo clearly learns something as he's able to make the seed sprout and bloom. The plant from another world lives for a moment, but just as quickly as it lived, it fades away. Paimon mentions that it was too quick, but Albedo responds that a short life, a well-lived life, is a good one, and one not constantly burned by the loneliness of a longer one. The group promises to continue helping each other in the future and staying friends, and the Traveler and Paimon return to Mondstadt. After they leave though, Albedo mentions how there was something about the experiment that he didn't tell them. Something actually peculiar. There was sediment that formed at the bottom of the potion that the Traveler drank. He says that the Traveler and him are alike, and that if one day Albedo loses control and tries to destroy everything, he wonders aloud if he can rely on the Traveler to stop him. The pair return to the city to rest and head to the tavern. There they hear rumors of an individual who goes by the name the Darknight Hero, the same name they heard in the Strongest Fighter debate, which, for being honest, that name sounds like a certain comic book superhero. You know the one, come on. Daredevil. They inquire further into the rumors around town, which leads to the pair snooping around at night, only to find Diluc is fighting an Abyss Mage, and that he's actually the Darknight Hero. Diluc asks the pair to keep his identity a secret, especially from the Knights of Favonius. The Knights appear shortly after and need the Traveler's help regarding a threatening letter that is addressed to the Darknight Hero, written by the Abyss Order. However, there are ciphers in the letter, and because of that, most of it is illegible. The pair tells Diluc of the letter, but he already knows due to his little bird, since he's got someone everywhere, it seems. Diluc needs the help of the pair though to decipher the letter, so they all three travel to an Abyss stronghold to get an Abyss Mage to decipher it for them. After torturing the mage, Jesus Christ, he tells the group that a force will march on the gates of Mondstadt tomorrow night. In Mondstadt, the Knights of Favonius don't want the Darknight Hero to continue being a vigilante, as that hurts the people's trust in the Knights, and if the Darknight Hero were to be killed by the Abyss Order, it would be a huge blow to the city as well, so they don't want a vigilante in town, but they also need to take the letter seriously. Kaeya appears and tells the Knights that he has a hunch that the Darknight Hero is actually Diluc, so he needs to keep an eye on him. The pair tells Diluc of Kaeya's suspicions, and it appears Diluc is aware of this, due to them having a strained relationship for an unknown reason. Diluc hatches a diversion plan though, and with the help of the pair, he pulls it off, so he's now prepared for when the Abyss Mages come to town.
Ah, there you are. Dealing with you will be the easy part.
They return to the tavern, and it appears Kaeya knew of their every action, but has decided to keep it all a secret. Diluc thanks the pair for their assistance, and promises that he'll always be there to help them in the future, as he continues to live his day life as a rich winery owner, while living his night life as the Darknight Hero. You know, just like that one superhero. Green Arrow. While in the Mondstadt Cathedral, the pair notice a Fatui man watching them. He says his name is Victor, and that he's looking to recruit the Traveler into the Fatui. The Traveler obviously declines, but Victor actually does need the Traveler's help anyway. Apparently, everyone in Mondstadt isn't exactly happy with the Fatui diplomats due to what happened with the Storm Terror incident, and so nobody is giving Victor the time of day. It seems that he just wants to go home to Snezhnaya, but is still tasked with staying in Mondstadt for some reason. He asks that the Traveler help him on a few errands, such as getting him a souvenir and helping him take care of some monsters, and after all of that is done, he'll give the Traveler some information on the Fatui. The pair make it a priority to learn more about the Fatui since the Gnosis incident with Venti, so they go out of their way to assist Victor. Once Victor is satisfied, the Traveler begins to ask him some questions. They ask about Signora, and while Victor does work for her, all he knows is that she left Mondstadt about as quickly as she entered. Victor says the Fatui Harbingers are the 11 strongest members of the Fatui, and they have to be made a Harbinger by the Tsaritsa, the Cryo-Archon, who's viewed as even more than a god to the Fatui for some reason. He says he's heard the name of another of the 11, that Harbinger number 6 is named Scaramouche, and is apparently disliked by some of the other Harbingers because of his disagreeable personality. Victor says that he'd rather work under a Harbinger named Capitano over Signora, though. Finally, Victor offers up some information of his own about an item called a delusion. Delusions apparently allow the wielder to harness an element like a vision would, but Victor says that delusions are even more powerful than visions, and that the Tsaritsa herself even gives them out to the Harbingers, and that because they're so powerful, few can use them that aren't the power of a Harbinger. Regular people can use delusions, but at a great cost. Delusions don't have to be granted by a god, though, to be used, and because of that, they're much more practical, but also much more dangerous. That's all the information that Victor can offer up to the pair, though, but he's clearly thankful for them even giving him the time of day. The Traveler and Paimon have received invaluable information, though, information that will no doubt be useful for their future adventures. A few days pass of the pair doing commissions and odd jobs for townspeople for money, known as Amora, for their trip to Liyue, but the pair receive many requests specifically meant for Jean, including alcohol taxes and even a missing cat, so they go and inform her of them. But when they meet with Jean, she appears sick. She's got Subba to my channel.
These nuts.
They inform her of the request, but Jean passes out, so they bring her to the cathedral. Barbara expresses how Jean passed out from burnout, and Kaeya asks the pair for their help in the requests that were given to Jean as she recovers. Venti, Lisa, and Amber help the duo with the requests, and after completing them, they check up on Jean, but Barbara tells them that Jean wanted to get back to work quickly, but she decided to go to Lady Vanessa's place first, which turns out to be the huge tree at Windrise, the one that Venti healed himself at. Barbara explains how Jean goes there whenever she feels lost and confused. The pair meets Jean there, who's in the middle of a prayer to Vanessa.
Lady Vanessa, I hope your watch over Mondstadt remains unclouded. I do not know if I, or the rest of the world, as you had hoped for, have become stronger. Huh?
Vanessa was the first Grand Master of the Knights of Favonius who overthrew the oppressive regime of Mondstadt's past. When she overthrew the regime, she was known as the Lion Fang Knight, but when she established the Knights of Favonius, she became known as the Dandelion Knight. Jean is also known as the Dandelion Knight because either that title or the Lion Fang Knight title are passed down to each Knights of Favonius master. Suddenly an Abyss Mage appears and attacks Jean, believing her to ultimately still be sick, but the Traveler scares it off. Jean is clearly still suffering from the burnout, you know, from writing a 45-page script about Genshin Impact's story. I'm fucking losing my mind. But the trio follow after the mage. After finishing off the mage, they return to Mondstadt, where they're informed by a gate guard that Jean is needed at Angel's Share, so they head there thinking it's for work. But it's a surprise! Amber, Kaeya, Barbara, Lisa, Diluc, and Venti wanted to hold this party for Jean as a thank you party for all that she's done. They completed all the tasks meant for her in order for her to be able to just take the day off to relax. So they all decide to get fucking lit. Hey, what's a wisp gotta do for a drink around here? Am I right? You know, I was in the Archon War, right? You know, with Barbados. I was like this close to beating him, you know? I could be a god right now, you know? Well, my mom said that I could be a god, but, Ooh, bar nuts. Don't mind if I do. As the party winds down, the Traveler and Paimon meet Jean on the balcony. Jean explains that she now sees herself more as a Dandelion Knight rather than a Lionfang Knight. Lionfang represented a past of fighting, while Dandelion represents the hopes for the future. Filled with hope for the future herself, Jean vows to continue moving forward. Fully prepared, the pair now make their way to Liyue, the nation of contracts. They traverse the lands between and happen upon a statue of the Xiao Archon, and like with the Anemo statue, the power of Xiao is transferred to the traveler, giving them the ability to now freely manipulate the element of Xiao. They arrive at Liyue Harbor before the Rite of Dissension, so they see the sights of the town before it begins. While becoming acquainted with several townspeople, they meet a woman by the name of Atsuko. Atsuko is adjusting to the life in Liyue Harbor and explains that she's from a land known as Inazuma, which is ruled by the Electro Archon. She speaks of the strict nature of the country and states that she left because she wanted to be free from its suffocating nature. After seeing the town a little more, the pair make it to the Rite of Dissension viewing platform. There, a woman oversees the rite, and they come to learn that her name is Ningguang, and that she's a member of the Liyue Qixing, who are the businessmen and women who control the matters within Liyue. Liyue is a nation of contracts, and as such is ruled by a business elite. The Rite of Dissension is a time in which the Archon of Xiao, named Rex Lapis, and previously known as Morax, which is where the word Mora comes from, will arrive and make predictions about the economics of Liyue Harbor. As such, these predictions govern the commercial affairs of the city.
Rex Lapis has been killed. Seal the exits.
Afraid of being deemed suspects in the murder, the pair flee from the scene, but when they're close to escaping, guards halt their path.
They're here! Arrest them! There's nowhere to run!
Hey girlie, hold still.
Stop! Stop!
Come with me.
The orange-haired man says his name is Child, which he admits is an alias. He asks the pair if they've met a person named Signora and reveals that, like her, he's one of the 11 Fatui Harbingers. Unlike Signora though, he offers his assistance. He brings the pair to the Northland Bank, a bank in Liyue Harbor owned by the Fatui, so that they won't be overheard. Child tells the pair that they should head to an area in the Liyue nation known as Jiyun Karst and seek out one of the Liyue's Adepti. The Adepti, much like the Four Winds of Mondstadt, are beasts who are protectors of Liyue. But unlike the Four Winds, they are contractually bound to protect Liyue, and so they must. Child proclaims that meeting one of them will allow the pair to clear their names, and so Child gives the pair a sigil of permission, talismans that were created during the Archon War, an ancient war between gods. These talismans channel divine power, and it will allow the duo to meet with the Adepti, and so the pair make their way to Jiyun Karst. The pair meet the Adeptus, named Mooncarver, who is surprised to see a sigil of permission in this day and age, as they are apparently rare. It appears, however, that the Monolith, the guard of Liyue Harbor, followed the pair, and after dealing with the soldiers, the Traveler and Paimon are able to explain the events of Rex Lapis's passing to Mooncarver. So he's pretty pissed about the Qixing essentially allowing Rex Lapis to be assassinated, then placing suspicion on the Traveler. So he tells the Traveler to visit 3 other Adepti, Mountain Shaper, Cloud Retainer, and a Guardian Yaksha, to explain the events to them as well. First, the pair meet with Mountain Shaper, who is also surprised to see a sigil of permission. He says that they were made by Rex Lapis himself, so they should be beyond incredibly rare. After explaining to him what was explained to Mooncarver, Mountain Shaper says that throughout the years, the Adepti have moved further and further away from Liyue, as Liyue's humans have become more and more independent. The pair then leaves to tell the other 2 Adepti, as Mountain Shaper promises to meet up with all of them later. The pair performs a ritual and traverses a domain to meet with Cloud Retainer. Everything is once again explained to her like with the others, and she threatens to destroy the city, but is convinced to do otherwise, and also wishes to meet with the other Adepti. Finally, the Traveler and Paimon meet with the Guardian Yaksha, whose name is Xiao. Xiao lives on top of an inn called the Wangshu Inn, and he's very standoffish. It takes some convincing, and by convincing I mean feeding him his favorite food, to get him to speak with the pair. Xiao finally promises to meet with the other Adepti, and with that, every Adepti that Mooncarver wanted notified has been contacted. The pair return to Child and tell him everything that happened. Child explains that since the pair have been gone, the Qixing have declared that nobody can pay their respects to the Geo Archon's Exuvia, which is essentially a god's corpse. But Child states that he can help, but needs to meet with someone first. While waiting on word from Child, it appears that the Monolith aren't currently seeking out the Traveler and Paimon, which strikes them as odd. The pair decides to use this opportunity to get the Teyvat Travel Guide Volume 2, which contents are over Liyue, at the bookstore to learn more about the region. The store no longer sells the book, however, and informs the pair that Cheng the Ninth, a book collector in a place called Xinqiu Village, may have it. A boy overhears the conversation about the book collector and inquires as to whether he would have a novel entitled Legend of the Shattered Halberd as well. He explains that his name is Xinqiu, and that he's a literature enthusiast. We get it. You're a weeb.
Garugamesh!
He asks if he can travel with the pair to go meet Cheng, and the 3 head to Xinqiu Village. They arrive at Cheng's residence and ask him about the books. Cheng explains that a mine, known as the Chasm, was recently sealed off, and that because of this, his mining business started to go under. The Fatui then took advantage of this and began taking advantage of him. He had to sell his whole book collection in order to repay them. Well, all but one. They still wouldn't take his copy of Everybody Boo. Xinqiu and Cheng discuss the Halberd book series and how Volume 6 is excessively rare, and that it's actually the one book that Cheng really kept. Just then, a man appears to collect on the debt to the Fatui. It's clear that he's trying to cheat Cheng, and Xinqiu wants to help him. Xinqiu declares he's a Guha clan disciple, a clan that was thought to be long since gone. The man doesn't believe him, but leaves at the threat anyway. Cheng then hands over the book to Xinqiu while clearly at the end of his rope. Xinqiu leaves and immediately begins to read the book, but promises to return the kindness that Cheng showed him. So him, the Traveler, and Paimon set out to help Cheng. Just then, the man from earlier returns with friends to try and teach Xinqiu a lesson, but are swiftly dealt with. Xinqiu is actually very skilled in combat. After defeated, they mention that they're working for a man named Gentry Mausai, and Xinqiu suggests that the Traveler and Paimon go investigate that man, while he reads the book instead. After following the leads, the pair learns that Mausai is colluding with the Fatui to scam Cheng. Xinqiu, who again appears to just be reading a book, hears what's going on from the pair and gives them a letter to give to the Feiyun Commerce Guild, a powerful economic force in Liyue Harbor due to their trading of goods. After giving the guild the letter, the guild plans to buy up all of the ore that Mausai wants and store it in a warehouse. After buying all of the ore, even the remaining ore that Cheng has, the pair goes to the designated warehouse and meets with Xinqiu there. Mausai and the Fatui appear at the warehouse to get the ore, and the trio take them out. Afterwards, the Traveler and Paimon learn that Xinqiu is actually the heir to the Feiyun Commerce Guild and has been working his magic behind the scenes this whole time. He hates injustice and is basically a superhero. You know, like that one superhero. Batman. Xinqiu makes Mousehide pay 3 times the market value for the ore so that he can fulfill his order for the Fatui, since he's forced. Xinqiu gives the pair the halberd novel from earlier to return to Chang, and they do. In the process, Chang gives the pair the Teyvat Travel Guide Volume 2, while not realizing how important Xinqiu was in helping. It appears Xinqiu will continue helping others, even if it's never acknowledged. That night, the traveler decides to read some of the travel guide, but also some of the other novels that he and Paimon have picked up during their adventures. There are countless tales of heroes and antiquity, but the tales of Teyvat begin to stir something within the traveler, and some memories begin to return, being awoken by their sibling from within a fallen meteorite. Flames engulfing a land, and their siblings panic. The traveler can remember a specific word from their sibling's mouth, Conria. But that's all that will come to the traveler for now, and they instead decide to rest. In the morning, the pair heads to meet with Child, and the three meet with a man that Child had been seeking a meeting with, a man named Zhang Li. He's a consultant for the Wangsheng funeral parlor. Word of the traveler and Paimon's actions in Mondstadt seem to be spreading, as Zhang Li already knows who they are. Zhang Li explains that while Rex Lapis was an Archon, he's still an Adeptus as well. And in the past, when an Adeptus passed away, there was always a huge memorial service. Zhang Li asked the traveler and Paimon to help with that service for the past Archon. It's called the Rite of Parting. The plan appears to be that they'd be able to see the body, the exuvia, if the rite is performed, and so the traveler and Paimon agree to help Zhang Li with the preparation and procuring of the correct materials. Their first stop is to get some jade ore, and Zhang Li decides he wants to buy them all! He definitely doesn't seem to understand the value of Mora and is kind of a bougie bitch. But he seems to know a lot about ore anyway, and tells the duo how to actually pick out the best jade, instead of buying them all, and so they perform a process to find the best one. The seller tells them of a tale that suggests Rex Lapis used a product from their store hundreds of years ago, and ends up giving them the jade, half off. Because Zhang Li is a broke bitch, the traveler uses money that rich daddy Child gave them instead. When placing the jade in the location where the Rite of Parting will be located, Paimon mentions how the Monoliths don't seem to be looking for them again, and Zhang Li suggests that it might be because they no longer cast suspicion on the pair. Zhang Li also mentions how the exuvia is being held in the Golden House, the location of the only mint of Mora in all of Teyvat. Next, the group goes to procure special silk flowers in order to craft a perfume for the rite. Zhang Li takes the reins in the conversation as, like with the jade, he seems to have a very deep knowledge of silk flowers too. Zhang Li presses how this is the first parting for an Archon in 3,700 years, and that the preparations should be perfect. Once again though, he doesn't have any money. The shopkeep also has a story about how his store is connected to Rex Lapis and also gives a discount as well. It appears most shops have stories connected to Rex Lapis, and this shows how connected the god was to the daily lives of those in Liyue and their reverence for him. In order to make the perfume, the traveler and Paimon use the assistance of a perfume maker and make use of the Wanmin restaurant, where Xiangling's father works. The woman also flirts with the traveler? Wait a minute. Lisa!
Hi, darling.
They bring the finished product to Zhang Li as he stares at a statue of Rex Lapis longingly, and they offer the perfume to the statue. It responds to a perfume for older women, and Zhang Li suggests that it might have reacted that way because Rex Lapis may have actually taken the form of an older woman at some point in the past. Off a request from Zhang Li, the pair then seeks out an item called the Cleansing Bell from a woman named Madame Ping. She explains how the bell is in her her teapot. They enter the teapot and it contains a whole domain within it. They find the Cleansing Bell and leave the teapot, and it's revealed that Madame Ping is an Adeptus. Once again, the pair return to Zhang Li, go buy some kites. Zhang Li knows a lot about them. You know the drill by now. When they go to pay, Child appears and foots the bill for them again and gives them mad cash for the rest of the products. Haggling commences many times and more of the items are acquired. Child shows up again to get more info afterwards, but the traveler refuses to give him anything because of what happened with Signora. They don't trust him. Child leaves, a little pissed, and the group continues to Boo Boo Pharmacy to get another item called Everlasting Incense, because they didn't already have enough items. Jesus Christ, this quest is so long. Are you looking at me? Whoa, you wanna go back to my place?
A new contract, okay. I'm still on leave, but I can accompany you for a while. What name should I use on the contract?
There they meet a dead child. No, she's not a child. She's actually 500 years ago. She's a fucking child. She's a fucking zombie child. The zombie child's name is Chi-Chi, and she was seemingly brought back to life by an Adeptus. Apparently zombies have to operate on orders, but the weird thing about Chi-Chi is that she gives herself her own orders. Chi-Chi makes a deal with them to get the incense, but they have to find a cocoa goat at a ballista, known as the Guizhong Ballista, that was made by an Adeptus. Then she'll give them the incense. What the fuck is happening? The ballista was designed to protect Liyue from giant monsters, and Chi-Chi explains that a cocoa goat is a legendary Adepta beast, and the party heads out to find it. They arrive at the ballista, but it is inoperable. The group finds parts, and Zhang Li manages to repair the device. The ballista has the ability to detect beasts, but it appears there's no cocoa goat here, because that's not a damn thing, you stupid fucking. Chi-Chi wanted coconut milk from the beast. The boss of the pharmacy appears, named Baiju. He also has a talking snake. He asks for 3 million more for the incense, and Child appears again to help out. He was obviously listening in on everything as well. Child makes a deal with Baiju and acquires the incense. Child then speaks with a Fatui member outside who he had trail the team the entire time. She informs him of everything, including the fact that the Exuvia is being held in the Golden House. With the preparations finally done, Zhongli decides to treat the pair to a meal for celebration. At dinner, they hear the tale of Lady Ningguang, the woman who presided over the rite of dissension.
They say that when Lady Ningguang ponders important affairs, she retreats to her jade chamber with none but her 3 closest confidants in tow. Why brings she these trusted 3 to sift through sources, dig through documents, looking for information? Piece by piece, facts and figures paint a picture on the walls of the chamber. But well before the wall is filled, Lady Ningguang's mind is made up. Having made her call, she has every last document shredded, and whoosh, she scatters the shavings out her window. Ah, look at them, how they billow in the wind like a sudden swirling blizzard. As the fragments fall, traces of text flicker before the eyes of the merchants of Liyue, like ink stains in white snow. The saying goes, the rarest treasures in the land are the words brought by the paper snow. For the words of the Tianquan have the power to move mountains, and all throughout the land know it.
Just then, an emissary for the Liyue Qixing appears named Gan Yu. She's the corporate secretary for the Qixing and tells the pair that Ningguang wishes to meet with them in the Jade Chamber in the sky. Zhongli wishes to meet with the pair at a place called Duiha Marsh after their meeting with Ningguang, and the pair wait for further word regarding their meeting. While waiting on the meeting, the pair get associated with the Liyue branch of the Adventurers Guild. They meet Catherine. Again?
Error.
That's weird. Nurse Joy then assigns them some commissions from the town, and one of them leads them back to the Wangshu Inn. The commission mentions how special hilichurls with a dark aura have been sighted, and the pair finds them near the inn. But before they can do the usual and end their lives, a masked man uses a special ability to fend them off. He claims to be an Adeptus named Star Snatcher that can grant wishes, who has seemed to have amassed a cult of followers who pay him for this wish-granting ability. Back in Liyue Harbor, the pair notices Star Snatcher at the bookstore, getting a copy of a book about the Guardian Yaksha, in other words, Xiao. The pair then read the book.
In ancient times, Liyue was a land of misery, where the shadow of evil loomed large. As slain gods festered, their vengeful wrath cursed the world, manifesting in infernal forms. When demons stirred, miasmas, monsters, and mutations infested the land. Then Rex Lapis summoned the Yakshas to vanquish the demons. They swore an oath: restore order through slaughter, purge evil through battle. To this, we dedicate our lives. Eons of bloodshed later, karmic debt weighed upon them, phantom wrath seeping into their broken souls. They went mad with fear, turned on each other, or succumbed to the darkness. Of the 5 foremost Yakshas, death came to 3, while the 4th vanished without a trace. In the millennia since, one conqueror of demons remains the sole surviving Yaksha in the mortal realm. And only on moonlit nights, in the glow from Guyun, and in the sound of the Dihua flute, is his memory preserved.
The pair decides to investigate Star Snatcher, as they believe he could be a fraud now. The Orid Hillyturtles approach Star Snatcher, but this time he can't send them away. The Traveler fights off the Hillyturtles, and Star Snatcher mentions how his sigil of permission didn't seem to work this time, due to him being a fraud. The Traveler and Paimon hunt down the rest of the Orid Hillyturtles themselves, but instead they find Xiao near their bodies. He says the Hillyturtles have a demonic aura because of his accumulated karma. The countless years of slaying demons has caused his karma to start to affect other living beings. The group then goes into a domain of the corrupted Hillyturtles and takes them out. They explain the Star Snatcher situation to Xiao, and he tells them that he's clearly a fraud. It turns out the sigil isn't really exorcising the demons, but it's allowing them to congregate instead. They decide that they need to take the sigil away, and Xiao says that they can convince him to do it by using an ability called Dream Trawler, which separates the soul from the body. To do Dream Trawler, they must perform a ritual first, which means they've got to get items for it, which really seems like a common occurrence for Liyue quests. Yay! On the search for these items, the pair meet a deceased junior Yaksha named Pervases on the anniversary of his death. He mentions the insane burden that Xiao must suffer and the countless amounts of death that Xiao has witnessed. The ritual is performed and Star Snatcher's soul is summoned. He's totally a Yaksha and Xiao stan and is convinced to stop his ways and tell his followers the truth. He leaves an apology letter at Wangshu Inn for the Traveler with the sigil attached. The pair gives it to Xiao, who pays respect to Pervases by eating Pervases' favorite dish, alone, in silence. The pair receive the invitation to the Jade Chamber and go to the Guizhong Ballista to find a way up. There they meet Keqing, another member of the Liyue Qixing. She's at the ballista to investigate why it's working again and how it was even fixed, as it would be nearly impossible for a mere mortal to do that. Keqing isn't a fan of the Adepti and thinks that they look down on humans. She believes the time of the Adepti has ultimately passed.
I don't care what you think. I just don't. Go think whatever you want. Think that there's 1 god, 2 gods, 10.
She tells the pair how to get to the Jade Chamber, and after procuring a gift, the pair do. At the Jade Chamber, Ningguang explains that she had always dreamed of making the Jade Chamber and began amassing funds for it as soon as she began being a merchant back in the day. Ningguang explains how she's been in correspondence with Jean, who has spoken highly of the Traveler. Ningguang says that since entering Liyue, she's been keeping an eye on the pair, and even that everyone at Wangshu Inn works for her as well. She explains the Archon War, a war that ended 2,000 years ago. It was a war that consisted of battles between gods to become rulers of this world. The victors of this were the 7 Archons that control portions of the world, like today. Corpses of the dead gods during the war pervade the current world, showing signs of the war's chaos and bloodshed. However, not all of the 7 gods of today are the same ones from the ones in the war, and there have been changes in their ranks. This means there will eventually be a new Lord of Geo, even though Rex Lapis has passed. Ningguang explains that she hid the Exuvia, to try and stabilize the situation, keep an eye on the Fatui, but also to bring out one person who she believes to be the true suspect behind the murder. Ningguang even allowed the preparations for the rite of passing to occur so that it would buy the Qixing time. As a gift for showing up, Ningguang allows the duo to take anything they want from within the Jade Chamber, and the pair, of course, decide to pick her sweet-ass Heelys. They end up actually choosing the most obvious piece of paper from her board, which contains her merchant secrets. The paper is proof, though, that the Fatui have been doing research on the Sigil of Permission. It appears Ningguang set this up so that the pair would specifically choose this piece of paper, and it worked. The pair decide to investigate to see if these allegations are even true. At the location listed in the research, they find Sigil of Permission copies, fakes that it appears the Fatui are making for nefarious purposes. With this information, the pair now decides to meet up with Xiangling at Duiha Marsh and spill all the tea about Ningguang and the sigils. Xiangling actually brought them to the marsh to get special glaze lilies, but also needs the traveler to sing to the lilies. It doesn't super pan out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, everybody in the...
Ganyu then shows up and is clearly in distress about Rex Lapis's passing. She divulges that 5 of the 7 original gods from the Archon War had passed before Rex Lapis, and now that means that 6 of them are gone. The only remaining Archon from the war is Barbados, which means Venti is now the only god that experienced the war. Rex Lapis was more than 6,000 years old before his passing, and the youngest Archon is the Dendro Archon, and he's around 500 years old. This means that Rex Lapis was around Liyue ever since its founding 3,700 years ago. Ganyu reveals that she's also an Adeptus, go figure, and that she's a mix of human and Xiangling, and that she actually fought during the Archon War. No wonder she's broken, right, Mihoyo? That's why you made her broken? Right, Mihoyo? She gives the group a glaze lily and gets to contribute to the passing of her friend. The 3 return to Liyue Harbor, and the Monolith and Fatui are actually at a standoff due to the parties hearing about the Adepti planning something, and Ningguang telling the Monolith to keep an eye on the Fatui. The Qixing have gone to meet with the Adepti to try to settle the dispute, but Xiangling warns the traveler of the delicate nature of Liyue Harbor now, and says to look for the fuse if the traveler intends to get involved. He leaves for the funeral parlor to take care of some business there, and the traveler realizes that this fuse may actually be Child, and the one place that he would be at a chaotic time like this is the Golden House, where the Exuvia is supposedly located. There, the guards have been knocked unconscious, and Child was indeed the culprit. His true goal was to get the Gnosis from the Exuvia, and says it's his duty to retrieve it as one of the 11 Harbingers. Child explains how he's different from Signora. Signora is calculated, and retrieve the Gnosis in the quickest and least combative way possible. Child, however, delights in battle and wants to test the strength of the traveler. He promises not to kill them though, but guarantees he'll be the victor. An intense battle ensues, and Child's Harbinger status is obvious based on his strength. In the battle, he also begins using the power of Electro, even though he has a Hydro vision. It appears that he's wielding a delusion, the item that Victor told the pair about back in Mondstadt. But the traveler's combined powers of Animo and Geo allow them to fend him off.
But that's about as far as you'll get. Didn't think you had that card hidden up your sleeve.
You were just playing us to get close to the Exuvia!
Oh, quiet down. Stop acting like some wide-eyed recruit. You've seen this world. You of all people should know. This should have been expected! Well then, I'll be taking more Axis Gnosis now! I see. Well, this is most unexpected. You beat me to it, didn't you?
Not bad. But this is going to cost you!
The Traveler is able to battle Child to exhaustion, and he returns to his normal state. He explains that his transformation, known as the Foul Legacy transformation, places an immense burden on his body, and thus he must flee. He acknowledges that there actually was no way the Traveler could have taken the Gnosis, and maybe even that Rex Lapis is actually alive. He acknowledges the Traveler's strength and says that he now considers them a friend due to their battle, but he explains that he now must resort to the backup plan. The plan to revive a god named Osial, one of the gods beaten and sealed during the Archon War. The plan is to revive the god to have it wreak havoc on the harbor so that it will force the hand of Rex Lapis if he truly is alive. Child becomes encircled in sigils of permission and divulges that the reason for all of the fake sigil copies was so that this could happen, so that their power could be used to revive the god, and even that the sigil he gave to the Traveler was a reproduction as well. Osial is revived and begins to set its sights on Liyue Harbor. The pair quickly make their way to the Jade Chamber, and it appears that others had the same idea, as Xiao, Ganyu, the other Adepti, Keqing, and Ningguang are already there. The Qixing and the Adepti agreed to put their disagreements aside in order to deal with the current threat. Cloud Retainer proposes using the Guizhong Ballista that she made in order to take down Osial. The Fatui appear to thwart their efforts by attempting to destroy the ballista, and an all-out badass battle occurs. The Traveler and company manage to fight off the Fatui due to the Adepti all granting the Traveler their strength, and the Qixing, Monolith, and Adepti all fighting side by side. With the Fatui defeated, all that's left is Osial.
The interlopers are no more. Now we may commit ourselves fully.
It's working! We just need to keep this up!
Be careful now.
The Guizhong Ballista is destroyed. Without its covering fire, retaliation shall be difficult.
But the Jade Chamber is our last line of defense. We can't give another inch, no matter what.
I have another idea.
What do you mean, Lady Ningguang?
I'll sacrifice the Jade Chamber. What is the meaning of this?
I understand.
Traveler, lend me a hand. Farewell, old friend. Goodbye for now. Let us meet again in the future.
Back in Liyue Harbor, Ningguang's sacrifice of the Jade Chamber reopens negotiations, and she explains how Liyue has changed. It's the people of Liyue that she thought of, not just the land itself. The Traveler adds to that narrative, explaining the lessons learned in Mondstadt, that there needs to be harmony between the protectors and the protectees, much like with what happened with Dvalin and the people of Mondstadt. The Adepti come to accept that while Liyue may need protection from time to time, the people there and the Qixing can solve their own problems, that the time of contracts between gods and Liyue is over, and the time of contracts between Liyue and its people has begun. The Adepti leave, and Paimon brings up how Rex Lapis never came to protect the city and wonders if he's truly alive or dead. They go to get Zhongli to inquire into the rite of passing and learn that he's at the Northland Bank. Afraid for his safety due to the bank being owned by the Fatui that just attacked the city, they go to find him. There they find Child, Zhongli, and Signora, with Child very clearly not a happy camper. Child apologizes to the traveler, saying the attack on Liyue Harbor was nothing personal, kid, and says that Zhongli and Signora actually led him on, and that he was in the dark over everything. Signora mentions an agreement with Morax and asks for the Gnosis. Zhongli says that the contract has been fulfilled and hands over the Gnosis. Rex Lapis, who now goes by Zhongli, explains that he's handing the Gnosis over to the Fatui due to a contract that he had with the Tsaritsa, the Archon of Cryo. Zhongli explains that, well, he's old, and that his time as an Archon had begun wearing him down, and he finally came to realize that his role was over. He wanted some rest. But in order to determine whether Liyue could exist without him, he decided to test it. So he faked his death and got the Fatui to play roles in order to see who was protecting Liyue and how the powers that be within the city would actually react. If the city was ever truly at risk, he would have stepped in and saved it. But the test was passed, and the Adepti and the Qixing stepped up and protected Liyue. But ultimately, it was the Qixing who were the ones who took ultimate control, and that put Zhongli at true ease. While Zhongli and Signora knew of this plan, Child was none the wiser, so he was just a pawn, essentially.
Well then, with the Gnosis in my possession, I have no use for such idle chatter. We should return to Zapoljarny Palace and seek an audience with Her Majesty, the Tsaritsa. Come, Child.
Fine. I'll meet you there later. I'm not sharing a boat with the likes of you.
Do as you wish.
Now then, is there anything else you wish to ask me?
Right! As Xiangling always told us, a good trade is a fair trade. Paimon has no idea what could be a good trade for a Gnosis.
Realistically speaking, there is no such thing.
Huh?
However, I am the god of contracts. For thousands of years, I have made countless contracts. If the deal was of no benefit, then I certainly would not be inclined to agree to it. My agreement with the Cryo Archon will be the last of my contracts as the Geo Archon. My contract to end all contracts. As for the bargaining chip that the Tsaritsa used to balance the scales, uncover that answer for yourself in your future journeys.
With the chaos subsided, the port holds the rite of passing. On their way there, the pair hears how Child is being blamed for everything that occurred at the harbor with Osial. At the rite, the Monoliths, at the behest of the Qixing, say that Rex Lapis wasn't actually murdered, but rather he died naturally. And it appears Zhongli told the Qixing the truth over Rex Lapis, which is why this new lie is being disseminated. At the rite, Ningguang speaks that a new era has begun, and that Liyue must move forward. Keqing thanks the traveler and asks if there's anything that can be done for them. And they say,
well, could you help me put up some missing person posters?
After the rite, the pair speaks with Rex Lapis. He says that he's now fully taken on the role of the mortal Zhongli, and is no longer the Geo Archon Rex Lapis. He tells the pair that their further search for the rest of the Seven may actually be difficult, since the nearby country, Inazuma, is currently closed off. That the Electro Archon, named Ball, or Raiden to the locals, has closed the country off. Paimon brings up that the pair had heard this from Atsuko, but questions how the closure came to even be. Zhongli replies that it occurred due to visions, and he explains that visions are granted by the gods to those who show true strength of will at a desperate and fateful moment in their life. Much like how the Animal Archon is the god of freedom and the Geo Archon is the god of contracts, the Electro Archon, Raiden, is the god of eternity. Raiden believes that all visions should be given to divinity, and that they may harm her eternity, and so she created the Vision Hunt Decree within the land of Inazuma to round up all of the visions within the country and place them at a statue for the 1,000-armed, 100-eyed god. Zhongli tells the party that it will be incredibly difficult to enter Inazuma because of all of this. The Traveler and Paimon decide to give the idea some thought, and they leave. But Zhongli stays and stares off into the sunset. A new day has begun. Without the worry of suspicion any longer, the pair decide to see and learn more of the city. They see the sights and happen upon a man named Chongyun, who's an exorcist with excessive yang energy that dispels evil spirits. The Traveler and Chongyun get acquainted, and the Traveler helps him out on a hunt for evil spirits. A few days pass, and while exploring the town, the duo encounter Ningguang's secretaries, who recognize the Traveler and ask for their assistance. Apparently, Ganyu has gone missing. She left for Jiyun Karst a few days earlier, but hasn't returned. The workload for Ganyu is just too much for even all three of them, so they ask the Traveler to go look for her. The Traveler and Paimon find Ganyu, but it appears that she misunderstood something, as she thinks that she is no longer welcome in Liyue Harbor and that the time of the Adepti is over. Cloud Retainer appears and reveals that she looked after Ganyu when she was a baby. Ganyu gets all embarrassed from Cloud Retainer talking about her Dookie Dipey days and leaves to go perform Adeptus training to regain her Adeptus role. Cloud Retainer explains to the Traveler that while Ganyu may be an Adeptus, she's also human, and that she belongs in the human world, but Ganyu has told her that she doesn't feel welcome in a world of humans as someone who isn't like everyone else.
Most benevolent among all Adepti are the Qilin. They drink only spring water and eat only whole grain. But perhaps the mountainous dwellings of Adepti in Jiyun Karst might be too lonely for her human side. Under moonlight did one see her last. She stood by the precipice's edge, and upon the mist-veiled mountains she gazed. Her thin figure was immersed in the vast sea of clouds. One noticed her loneliness, and sought to convince her to go back to the human world. But just then, she said thus.
Liyue Harbor feels even lonelier than Jiyun Karst. When I look at the sea of clouds in Jiyun Karst, I merely feel the loneliness of a solitary cloud gazer. When I step into the sea of people in Liyue, I feel the loneliness of an inhuman that doesn't belong in the human world.
The Traveler and Paimon go to check up on Ganyu and they help her with her training, and after the first trial, they meet with Xiao for the second. He creates a trial for Ganyu to test to see if her mind and body are both in sync. But afterwards, a pilgrim appears and asks Ganyu for a blessing, but Ganyu makes it clear that blessings come to those who actually work hard. The pilgrim brings up how she sounds more like a city folk with that logic than an Adeptus, and this wakes Ganyu up, and after the pair finally convince her that she is wanted in Liyue Harbor, they all return. At the port in Liyue Harbor, Ganyu is finally able to relax a bit, for the first time in a long time. They come across a member of the Qixing there who explains that Ganyu looked after him when he first became a member. He asks Ganyu if she can help his daughter now, and so the group go to see what the problem is. It's tax irregularities. The group uncovers tax fraud due to Ganyu's skills, guidance, and immense knowledge of Liyue's workings, and they also stereotype and assault a member of the Fatui. Wow, you guys are terrible. After solving the problem, they go to dinner to celebrate. Ganyu is told that when the woman was a young girl, she heard stories of Ganyu from her father, and that she always admired her, and that she only decided to become a secretary because of Ganyu. She also explains that her daughter has chosen the same profession, and the only reason that she feels safe with that choice is because she knows that Ganyu will be there to guide her as well. Ganyu comes to realize that her long life from her Adeptus side doesn't really make her distant from humans, but instead closer to them, as she can be the witness and guide for generations. Ganyu returns to work with a new resolve and closeness to those around her. While exploring a ruin in Liyue, the pair run into a Monolith soldier who informs them of an abnormal ruin guard presence in the area. To thwart the threat, the pair look for the ruin guards and begin destroying them to deactivate them. But when they happen upon a deactivated ruin guard, they find a child playing with it, who calls it Mr. Cyclops. He says his brother, who he says is the best toy seller in the world, calls them that, and that he sells toys like this. He says his brother is at the Institute for Toy Research here in Liyue. The traveler introduces Paimon as a toy. The kid says his name is Tusser, and that he's from Snezhnaya and came looking for his brother. To help with looking for his brother, Tusser gives the pair fat stacks and makes the pair do a Snezhnayan pinky promise in order to help. They bring Tusser to the Northland Bank, since it's owned by the Fatui, to look for his brother. There they find Child, who is actually Tusser's brother. Turns out Child has 2 brothers and a sister that he looks after. Tusser apparently wandered into Liyue by himself looking for Child, and Child is actually worried about him and clearly cares about his family. He actually sincerely thanks the pair for helping his brother, and they mention how Tusser says that he's a toy seller when he's actually a Fatui harbinger, and Child acts quickly to quiet the pair. He tells them that he's lying to Tusser, that he wants his brother to look up to him, so he told him he was a toy seller. He doesn't want his family caught up with the Fatui in his dark life. Child has to collect debt for the Fatui now, and in the meantime he asks the pair to watch after Tusser in the city. They take Tusser to a toy store and Tusser asks for Mr. Cyclops. The woman clearly doesn't understand because it's a ruin guard, but he's rich as fuck, so she makes him a custom build anyway. They take Tusser out to eat and then head to the wharf where he talks about how small the fish are there and how they're about 200 times larger in his hometown. He gets sad though because he came to see his brother, so the duo take Tusser to see Child. Child is in the middle of a shakedown with treasure hoarders and he's about to get the money by force, but notices Tusser and has to play up his toy seller act. Child instead performs a test with the treasure hoarders to join their ranks and completely nails it, so much so that it freaks the treasure hoarders out. They promise to pay what they owe with the toys. A Fatui tells Child that he needs to speak to a batch of new recruits, as every batch of new recruits has to be spoken with by a harbinger, and he's the only one in the area. While the traveler and Paimon talk about what to do with Tusser while Child is gone, Tusser actually follows Child and they head after him. Child again notices Tusser while he's talking with the Fatui recruits and has to speak to the Fatui recruits as his toy seller persona. Child does some combat training with the recruits and the traveler notices that Child has become stronger since their first encounter, but presses Child on the fact that he didn't use his Foul Legacy transformation this time. Child says that it puts an immense strain on his body, so he only uses it for special occasions, and that he hasn't even recovered fully from using it before. Tusser says he wants to fight like Child, and Child tells him that to fight, you need something to fight for. Tusser says he wants to fight for their sister, Tonya, and Child says that's a perfectly good reason. Tusser then asks Child to take him to the Institute of Toy Research, and then he'll finally return to Snezhnaya. The Institute turns out to be the ruins where the ruin guards were wandering from earlier. Child explains that this is a research facility for Dottore, another of the Fatui harbingers. He says that the ruin guards weren't made by the Fatui, but that Dottore is really interested in old technology, so he set up the research lab on ruin guards. Inside the ruins, Tusser rushes ahead, and the 3 try and catch up to him, worried for his safety. They catch up to him finally, and to stop a ruin guard threat, Child wants him to play hide and seek, and gets him to close his eyes for 60 seconds.
Give me another 10 seconds, Tusser. Still hiding.
Huh. Now who's the cheater? All right, 10 seconds, that's it. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Coming, ready or not?
pair find Child before Tusser, and he's struggling due to using the transformation. He says that childhood dreams are too easily shattered, and he says he wants to protect them, that he'll do anything for his family. He gives the Traveler a Mr. Cyclops toy for Tusser, and he leaves, not wanting Tusser to see him run down. They give Tusser the toy and return to the Northland Bank, where the bank manager awaits them to take Tusser home. Tusser doesn't want to go with him though, because he's a stranger, and Paimon retorts that so were they when they met. But Tusser says that he already knew who the two were, that Child had sent letters home describing both of them. Tusser says that he wants to see them in Snezhnaya for a visit, and gets the two to pinky promise again. Child watches in the distance, hiding himself from his brother, not wanting him to remember him all beaten. He says he felt safe, with Tusser being protected by the Traveler, and that he wants a rematch, but regardless of what happens, he wants the pair to visit his home and see his siblings, Tusser, Tonya, and Anthon. They say that they already made a pinky promise to Tusser. You make a pinky promise, you keep it all your life. You break a pinky promise, it throws you on ice. The cold will kill the pinky that once betrayed your friend, the frost will freeze your tongue off, so you never lie again. Back in Liyue Harbor, the pair run into Madame Ping. She says her and the other Adepti came together to make a gift for the Traveler and Paimon, that she overheard Paimon say that they camp out a lot and thought to make something for that problem. She used subspace creation, an ability to make pocket worlds given to the Adeptus by Rex Lapis, to create the gift, but she needs a few more rare materials, namely shimmer soil and smaragdus jadeite, an ore from the chasm that was nearly mined out of existence, and she asked a woman named Yanfei to help find them. Yanfei appears and knows of the Traveler from the Monoliths records. She's a legal advisor and half Adeptus on her father's side. She's excited to meet the Traveler and gives them her business card. Yanfei has found the soil, but not the jadeite. She knows of a previous client, a merchant who is a procurer of rare ores, and so they go and find out if he has some of the jadeite. They find him and he says he made the jadeite into a hairpin and that he rented them out. He discusses the contract of the rental with Yanfei and how if the hairpin is damaged or lost, that the renter would have to pay 10 times the hairpin's price. The party finds the renter and she says that she lost the hairpins. Go figure.
1, 2.
The pair want to look for the hairpin, but Yanfei wants to see the contract first. She has cause to believe that the hairpin may actually not have been genuine. She asks some probing questions about the hairpin, and then they return to the merchant and ask him if the jadeite was actually legit. He says it was, and so the crew go on to talk with the renter again. There, Yanfei reveals that the description given by the renter of the hairpin means that the hairpin couldn't have been made out of smaragdus jadeite, because smaragdus jadeite has an effect on normal people where when it's touched, it makes them sick. When speaking with the merchant, Yanfei noticed elemental traces of the jadeite on him. Yanfei gets the renter to sign a contract with her to assist her with her legal expertise.
I once had to judge a tighty-whitey contest for lamb to Kappa pie. Trust me, I can handle anything.
An investigation with those in the ore market and those who were involved with the jadeite procurement with the merchant begins. Even Dr. Baiju is asked to provide an expert affidavit over jadeite sickness. This investigation, Yanfei's legal prowess and her quick wit, leads to conclusive evidence that the hairpin wasn't legitimate. The party uses this evidence to conclude that the merchant violated the contract with the renter, thus he's liable for the sum. Man, it's a bit weird that you've got to complete a suit to get an Animal Crossing house, right? The merchant finally ends up confessing what he did, that he actually came down with the jadeite sickness himself, and he learned from Baiju that you can't wear the ore because of that. So he felt that he had to put fake ore in the necklace, because if he didn't, the price for the ore would go to waste. He now owes 10 times the price to the renter for violating the contract, but the renter actually denies the money and instead just wants the jadeite. And she decides to give the jadeite to Yanfei for her legal consultation. The merchant and the renter ultimately decide to join forces in a business venture, and it's happy endings for everyone, please God. Oh my God, this quest. The Traveler notes how odd of an Adeptus Yanfei is, and she claims that Liyue Harbor is no longer commanded by the Adeptus, but by humans. That the nation needs legal advisors more than it needs adeptal power. Regardless, she's more interested in the law anyway, and clearly enjoys its practice. She's a free spirit, that's for sure. With the materials in tow, they return to Madame Ping. Yanfei has work to get to, but tells the traveler not to lose the business card from earlier. She says that she's been touching up on laws from other nations, so if the traveler ever ends up needing legal assistance, regardless of where, to contact her. The gift is constructed with the materials, and it's a teapot. A Serenity pot. Inside the teapot, an assistant awaits by the name of Tubby, and the long process of crafting this space into a new home begins. In search of more leads on their sibling, the traveler hears of a ship called the Pearl Galley, a casino boat which contains special guests that requires an invitation. After acquiring one, the pair happen upon Xiangling on the boat, discussing Rex Lapis with other patrons. They're discussing Rex Lapis's history, and while the patrons view his history with extravagance, Xiangling's depictions of events are, well, more pragmatic. But most of the other patrons don't believe him. One woman, though, is clearly interested in his view on Rex Lapis's history, and she pulls him and the pair aside to speak. Her name is Wanyan, and she introduces herself as an archaeologist. She asks Zhongli whether he thinks all of the gods that Rex Lapis killed during the Archon War were actually evil. Zhongli makes it clear, though, that that framing is incorrect. Rather than the character of those killed, he says that it was about whether they adhered to contracts. Wanyan says that in her research, she came across the god of salt, a god that fought Rex Lapis and that he assassinated her. Before Rex Lapis can explain the story of this god, a member of the Fatui appears and seeks his assistance. He's also an archaeologist, and he has hired Zhang Li from the Wangsheng funeral parlor for his historical and archaeological knowledge for an expedition. Wanyan, the traveler, and Paimon join the archaeological expedition as well, and they all travel to Guyun Stone Forest as the Fatui archaeologist believes that Osial's awakening might have resulted in new treasures there. Zhang Li speaks of the large stones there and says that they were spears used by Rex Lapis during the Archon War, and that one of them was used on Osial. After a search, the Fatui archaeologist and Wanyan are arguing, both questioning each other's credentials. Wanyan clearly not knowing a whole lot, except about the god of salt, and the Fatui clearly just looking for treasure for monetary reasons. Being interested in the god of salt, though, the group heads to Salterai. There is a ruin there dedicated to the god, but it's sealed. And once again, Zhongli's knowledge comes in clutch, and the group is able to break the seal. At the entrance, Zhongli proposes a contract between the squabbling so-called archaeologists, that each will split the artifacts by acquiring them one at a time without being able to know the artifacts in advance. The pair accept the terms of the contract and they enter the ruins. Once inside, there are people turned into statues littered throughout. The first artifact is found, which is a bottomless pot of salt that produces endless amounts of salt. Fine, I'm the artifact, alright, it's me. The Fatui man chooses the chalice, and so the next artifact will have to go to Wanyan, per the stipulations of the contract. The next artifact is a ruler that, when stuck in the ground, creates salt. The Fatui man wants this too, and thus breaks the contract, but Zhongli's not too happy about that, and confiscates his treasure and kicks his ass. Zhongli calls out Wanyan for clearly not being an archaeologist, and she fesses up. She's a member of the salt industry, and her ancestors were adherents of the salt god. She's clearly pissed at Rex Lapis, even calls him Morax, his derogatory name, and believes history depicts him as good simply because history is written by the victors. Further in, they find a broken sword split in two. Wanyan wants to take both, but Zhongli claims that that would break the contract as they're both two separate artifacts, even though the Fatui man is now gone. She doesn't care and takes them both anyway. Zhongli decides to punish her for breaking the contract, and that punishment is the truth. He explains that the god of salt, Havria, was actually not as powerful as Wanyan claims, that during the war, Havria fled, thinking that she could save her and her people from the destruction, but the war was too all-encompassing and her fleeing only led to a cornering. The sword in front of them was actually her murder weapon, not a weapon of war. Wanyan didn't exactly like hearing that, doesn't believe it, and she runs off. When they find her at the innermost chamber, where a large pile of salt lies at the center of the room, a statue thrusting near it. This salt is Havria's body. Her own adherents killed her, and these statues littered throughout are the result of her released power upon her death, turning her own followers into statues of salt. The truth is too much to bear for Wanyan, and she leaves in disbelief. Xiangling says that Havria made him learn some tough lessons, and he makes it clear that adherence to gods long since past isn't a good thing. Xiangling asks the pair to go to Guyonstone Forest again, and when they arrive, he uses the place as a burial for Havria's artifacts. History's current perception by all parties has been twisted. Xiangling wishes to find a recording method which preserves the truth, and he believes that the Traveler can be that method. Someone who can travel worlds may bring the memories and truth of this world to others.
Thousands of years ago, the Adepti and I fought against the turmoil that plagued every corner of this land. Guyonstone Forest, where I sealed many gods with my spears. After so long, naught but folk tales remain. Oh, Sal, you and I were foes, but our ancient grudge is but a bygone memory now. May that which Havria has left behind be yours to subsume. And thus another spark of divinity departs from Liyue. My legacy shall now be left to those who come after to debate.
While solving commissions and exploring the outskirts of Liyue Harbor, the Traveler and Paimon run into a strange woman in mage-like attire. She explains to them that their meeting was as predicted, and that she knows that the Traveler is not from this world. The name is Mona Magistus, proclaimed as a master of true astrology. Her master, due to an agreement from 50 years ago, has assigned Mona a mission to retrieve a special box from Mondstadt. Mona says that she sought the help of the duo in order to take on the master of the box. Apparently, the master of that box and Mona's master fought in the mystic arts for years, but neither was ever the victor. Mona wants to change that and beat the master of the box while retrieving the box. But she also knows that her master's rival is currently gone and that there is currently a successor to the box. She wants the Traveler to act as her disciple and help her take down this successor. She promises that if the Traveler helps her with this, she can help them find their missing sibling. The Traveler decides that Mona clearly knows what she's talking about and that it's too good of an offer to refuse, so they accept. While journeying to Mondstadt, the trio stop at a nearby inn near Liyue Harbor. They want to help a man with his missing ring, but Mona explains that she can't use her astrology for trivial matters, and if she did, she would lose her abilities. But the owner offers 20 G's to find that ring, so she decides to help.
She's broke as hell.
With the money, the group heads to Wangshu Inn and orders a feast for the Traveler and Paimon.
Oh my god, yes!
But the pair feels bad for Mona afterwards, so they make her something, as she's clearly a poor hag. The group makes it to the border of Mondstadt when a group asks if they want to join them on their return, but Mona is able to discern that they're bandits. Mona is able to fight them off, as she is clearly skilled in combat as well as predictions and perception because of her astrology abilities. Mona says that she can read most situations at a glance, but when it comes to the Traveler, she can't see anything on them because they're not from this world. They arrive at the gates of Mondstadt, and Mona explains that her astrology is based on hydromancy, and that she uses reflections in bodies of water to observe the stars. She demonstrates her abilities and predicts Klee's appearance, who does show up. Klee is happy to see the Traveler and Paimon again, but Mona declares that Klee is actually the successor of the box. Klee clearly has no clue what Mona is talking about, but it's revealed that Klee's mother is the rival to Mona's teacher, and that while Mona's teacher is incredibly skilled in astrology, Klee's mother is skilled in all kinds of mystical arts. Klee does know about the box, but she buried it. Klee's kind of like a dog. They retrieve the box and find that Mona had been rummaging through Klee's belongings and was reading a diary. The box contains...
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
nothing. It's actually empty, and Klee says that she was using it to store her treasures. The original content of the box was actually the diary that Mona had been reading. Turns out the book was just her master's diary. She wasn't supposed to read the book in the box though, and now that she has, she's kinda screwed, and she's pretty scared. She doesn't want to return to Liyue Harbor as her master will be pissed. The pair ask Catherine at the Adventurers Guild if there's somewhere for Mona to stay in the meantime, and it appears that there's a magic lab in Mondstadt that was mysteriously sealed by someone. How convenient! Mona is able to break the seal with her astrology and is allowed to stay there because of that. Mona says she's not able to read the Traveler's destiny without more tools and knowledge, but she claims that she will once she's able to. With her quest now complete and her now living in Mondstadt, Mona and the Traveler are bound by fate to meet again. The pair hear of a festival that will be starting in Mondstadt soon, known as the Windbloom Festival, so they decide to stay in town until it's over. They get notice from Jean to go see her for a quest. She informs the pair that someone within the Lawrence clan has been colluding with the Fatui. The Lawrence clan are the clan that controlled Mondstadt during the Dark Ages. They ruled with an iron thumb and owned slaves. Lady Vanessa created a revolution and took down the horrendous regime. Jean asks for the Traveler because most of the Lawrence clan and the Knights still have bad blood from the feud that's lasted generations. The Traveler is sent to speak with a man named Schubert from the clan, who is the one suspected of working with the Fatui. They meet with him and he's a total asshole. He's very strict with speech and gets triggered easily when people don't speak in a certain way to him. He's a total trash bag who claims that the city has lost its way and that one day the Lawrence clan will lead again. They return to the Knights HQ and run into Amber. They let her know about everything and she's like, yeah, Schubert a bitch. She mentions though that one of the Lawrence clan is actually great and that her name is Eula, captain of the Knights of Favonius' 4th company. Eula doesn't adhere to the traditions of her family, but she does know them. Jean chose the Traveler for the job with Schubert instead of Eula because Eula's family kinda hates her right now for her joining the Knights and claims that she's a traitor. The two find Eula after fighting off Fatui, but for fighting off her enemies, she declares vengeance against the pair. She does show concern for the pair and how they were in danger during the fight, but then calls the Traveler and Paimon her arch enemies. They tell Eula about the allegations against her uncle, and she tells them that she'll help them with learning aristocratic etiquette because this is a mission from the Knights, and that she'll save her revenge against them for later. Back in Mondstadt, Eula begins to teach them and uses other townspeople to demonstrate, which probably wasn't the best idea.
Have you ever had a dream that you do?
Most clearly have a certain impression of her simply because of her lineage, and thus stereotype her because of it. Eula explains how people normally treat her this way, but she understands because of the sins of her ancestor and thus takes responsibility for their actions and bears the burden herself. To further train, the group head to Dragonspine, and Eula has the Traveler do elegance and composure training in the harsh cold. These types of rigorous exercises are ones that Eula had to perform while growing up. After completing the training, Eula gives the pair warm milk to help warm them up, because she's a total mommy. The group returns to Mondstadt and run into Amber again, and they all decide to grab a bite to eat together. The waiter gives the group a free salad. Amber explains that Eula is kinda a total jokester, and that she really doesn't mean anything bad when she tells people that she wants vengeance. It's just a thing that she does. Eula says that since she's a social pariah, it's almost impossible for her to be seen as a good person. So it's clear that instead of speaking like a good person, Eula plays the role of a bad person in speech, but she really just commits acts of kindness and clearly strives to be a good person in action. After the meal, Eula pays for it, but she also pays for the salad that was supposed to be free, as an act of revenge. Traveler and Paimon pick up a dish from the waitress that's meant to be a gift for Schubert, and she explains how, when Eula first joined the Knights, it caused an immense disruption in Mondstadt. Townspeople didn't want her to join, and the Lawrence clan even tried to block the entrance of the headquarters because of it. But the Grand Master at the time, Varka, who's currently away, which is why Jean is the acting Grand Master, allowed her in anyway. Regardless of all the hate, Eula still helps the people of Mondstadt as a knight. The pair meet with Schubert, who sits on a lavish chair but seems to be living in poor conditions. Using their aristocratic training from Eula and giving the gift from earlier, the traveler is able to convince Schubert to take them with him to meet with his associates. Schubert is working with the Fatui. A Fatui member expresses concern over the Traveler and Paimon being there, as this is supposed to be a secret mission, but the Traveler and Paimon are unrecognized due to disguises. Schubert becomes angry at the Fatui member, expressing that if it weren't for the pull and power of the Lawrence clan within Mondstadt, the Fatui wouldn't be able to be in the town anymore. Schubert gives the Fatui member a diagram of Mondstadt's defenses and hopes that the town will be returned to the Lawrence clan to return to the glory days. The pair remove their disguises and reveal their identities to put a stop to the plans. The Knights and Eula appear, capturing Schubert, who then presses Eula about teaching the Traveler their etiquette, which is against their family's rules, and he also urges her to leave the Knights and be a true Lawrence. But Eula rejects that. She chooses freedom over the Lawrence family's bloody and horrible visions for the future.
I've never experienced the age of glory you always speak of. And I've never understood our family's incessant pursuit of it. But I am capable of discerning right from wrong, and I deeply understand what freedom means to the people of Mondstadt. The Lawrence clan should never and will never become what you've dreamed it to be.
The Traveler, Paimon, and Eula go and retrieve the diagram from the Fatui agents and foil the Fatui plot. Declaring that they're now archenemies, Eula leaves the group to return to the Knights to continue protecting freedom without praise. The Windbloom Festival begins in full swing in Mondstadt, and the pair learn that it's a festival of love and freedom, where windblooms are offered to the Anima Archon, Barbados, and loved ones. A windbloom is a flower that represents freedom, but it appears that there's no consensus on which flower is the windbloom. The pair happen upon Venti, who is holding a poem crafting class. Venti asks the duo to help with the teaching, and they're like, sure, why not? We do everything else, I guess. They help some peeps out, and Kaeya shows up to be a student as well, while taking over some of Jean's duties. Duty Jeans. And doing some poetry homework, Kaeya asks the pair plus Venti to help out a friend of his, who tells them that he needs help getting a gift for his wife. When they return to Kaeya, his poem is complete, and it shows a knowledge of the Hilichurl language, Hilichurlian. While on another errand for Kaeya, the three run into Lisa and Jean, and then Bennett and Barbara. Barbara received a letter that says that the person has stolen the thing most precious to her and buried it, with a map attached. Bennett runs off to where he thinks the map is showing, and Barbara thinks the letter is talking about her sister, which is pretty dark. But Rosaria informs her that she just ran into Jean and that she's fine. Rosaria tells them that the map is showing Dawn Winery, so they go and investigate and find the buried item, which ends up being a wreath and paper stars. Turns out it was just done by one of Barbara's crazy fans. Back in Mondstadt, they go to meet with Timaeus and see how he's doing with his poetry homework, and also they run into Sucrose, who asks the trio to take an alchemic recipe to Albedo on Dragonspine, as they think the recipe may be for an ancient windbloom. Albedo and Venti meet for the first time, and it turns out that the recipe is for a Turbo Man action figure. It's actually an ancient sweet flower recipe, and Sucrose nerds out over it, claiming it's her windbloom. Timaeus hands in his poetry homework, and it kinda slaps too.
Timaeus, may I recite it?
You're gonna read it out loud?
Don't be embarrassed. Here we go.
The global network of capital essentially functions to separate the worker from the means of production.
Wow, sounds so romantic.
Barbara then tells them that Bennett is missing, so they go searching for him and find him trapped with Razor. While trapped, Bennett and Razor had been working on Bennett's poetry homework, and in the poem, Razor listed wolfhook berries as his windbloom flower. Razor and Bennett go in pro-chill, and the trio go to Diluc's tavern, where Diluc, Rosaria, and Kaeya are there. Kaeya says the Traveler has been chosen as this year's Windbloom Star, which is a person who's made sacrifices for Mondstadt and gets to choose the Windbloom to offer to the Animo Archon. The Traveler participates in the ceremony and chooses what they believe to be the Windbloom. Afterwards, Venti invites the pair to Storm Terror's lair to tell them something. At the ruins, Venti says that when he's got nothing to do, he just comes to these ruins. Venti explains that there's no true Windbloom, that everyone gets to choose what Windbloom really means to them. The word itself came into existence as a resistance code during the old days of Mondstadt. Windbloom just means freedom and courage.
The Windbloom Festival originated in the Crown of the North, the City of Freedom.
Oh, we gotta bring enough supplies this time. Otherwise, you'll go hungry again.
So, if you're asking me...
Unofficial business? We're grateful to you. As are we to you. Funny, we haven't gotten together for a little while. It's been so busy lately.
What should we do on this day?
Mr. Albedo!
How's the research going?
We've had a few issues.
Have a look at this.
Of course, any good tavern offers bar snacks.
Really?
How should we do it? Who should we do it for? Quietly? Or boldly? Make the first move, or trust a chance.
Huh?
Look out! Sorry, so sorry! My answer is this. So long as we can both share fond memories, it doesn't matter. Let the heart decide.
Days and nights pass within Mondstadt without incident, but one morning, Catherine calls forth the Traveler on urgent notice, one sent to all adventurers within the area.
There was a meteor shower last night. The strike zone was very large, covering the entire countryside of Mondstadt and Liyue. The meteorites seem to harbor a strange power. A power that sends any who touch them into a deep sleep. The guild believes the meteorites to be highly dangerous.
To help with the urgent case, a senior adventurer from the guild named Fischl appears, and with her a talking raven named Oz. Fischl appears to speak in wordy and unusual diction, even calling others her vassals, like a royal, and often needs Oz to explain her sentences for her.
Everyone is judging. Welcome back to Judges. Every single wizard is going to something. I said I've heard you something.
I believe that Mein Fräulein does indeed refer to the meteorite strike.
For safety concerns, Catherine asks that the Traveler and Paimon team up with Fischl and Oz to learn of the true nature of the meteorites. Oz explains to Paimon and the Traveler that Fischl has come from another world as well, one known as the Immernachtreich, and that she's a princess. He is her familiar. Fischl explains her past world as one of everlasting night. The group heads to an impact site for the meteors in Springvale to investigate the situation. They investigate the victims who have been in a slumber after having contact with the meteorites. In their sleep, though, they mumble phrases, such as how they can't go on, and how they need to rest. Fischl believes that the people have been cursed, and that their dreams are luring them. One of the victims has awoken, though, and told others that his dreams had him on a cold mountain, before he fell back into his coma. Draff asks the trio if they can help him find a missing person, but when they do, they also find slimes with enhanced strength. It seems to be due to a nearby fallen meteorite, which is also causing Fischl's vision to react to its elemental energy. Fischl, again, appears to not be able to convey her thoughts very well, as she apparently has trouble speaking the common tongue. The group uses Fischl's vision to find meteorite shards, to make sure nobody else gets harmed by them. Taking care of the shards also manages to awaken the victims in Springvale, who claim they were on an icy mountain in their dreams, not in control of their actions. The head household of the Dawn Winery asks for the group, so they meet with her. She states that winery workers who were making deliveries to and from Leeway haven't returned yet, and that she fears it might be due to the meteorites. So she asks the group to head to Leeway and find them. At the border to Leeway, the group finds the cart, but only one worker, while the other is at a separate cart further in Leeway and needs assistance. But when they arrive, they find him in slumber with a strange man in fanciful attire nearby. It happens to be that a meteorite struck the cart and that the strange man happened to use magic to take care of it. He says that he's a wanderer from Inazuma. The Monoliths appear and help with the worker from the winery, taking him to a nearby ward at Wangshu Inn, and the wanderer from Inazuma departs. At the medical tents, the story is the same with the victims there as it was in Springvale. They go to dispose of the meteorite shards near the inn and find a larger meteorite chunk instead, with Fatui agents surrounding it. It appears they're investigating the shards as well, and once they're defeated, they mention how a Fatui Harbinger is nearby that will take care of the group. Taking care of the meteorites individually appears to almost have no effect on the overall problem. Fischl still believes that they are a curse on mankind, so they go and ask Catherine whether there are people who are skilled at undoing curses in Mondstadt. She suggests Mona, who she calls. When Mona arrives, she meets Fischl, who she's suspicious of and suggests looking into her personal history using her astrological techniques. But Oz warns against this, saying that Fischl's world was destroyed and that they shouldn't bring up those terrible memories. To help the group, Mona heads to an open area and uses her hydromancy to try and understand what's happening with the meteorites. She says that the source of the meteorites is someone's constellation. She explains that the stars that form a constellation are celestial bodies in space, and that these are what have fallen from the sky. While looking into the issue in greater detail, Mona is able to ascertain the locations of fallen meteorites. The group uses this information to dispose of them and return to Mona, who explains that it's clear that the fallen constellation is related to just one individual. But in order to know who, they need to know more information about the dreams. They head to Xinqiu village in Leeway to get answers. To awaken the victims there, they deal with more meteorites and inquire into the dreams of those who have awakened. Like, what is this guy dreaming about?
You could stop at 5 or 6 stores, or just one.
A man explains that, within the dreams, he was consumed with the idea of climbing the snowy mountain and reaching the summit. He says he felt like a completely different person in the dream, and this confirms that everyone was having the same dream. Using this information, Mona uses her hydromancy and finds the name Leonard.
Hi! Sounds interesting. Mind if I join you?
What ho! We meet again, vagrant of Inazuma. My retinue and I were
just... The first time the Monoliths were present, I had to forego the chance to strike down Mondstadt's savior. This time was a perfect moment. I was mere seconds away. But who was that mage? She could not have known who I am. Perhaps her powers revealed to her things unseen. Soldiers! Sir! Find them, and when you do... Another one?
My lord! It's happening again. This is the largest one we've seen so far.
They just keep coming. But so be it. Move out. Change of plan. Your prior objective remains in force. Continue to research the meteorites.
My lord, leave them to us. We will make short work of them.
Are you deaf or just stupid? When did I give you the right to issue your own orders?
My apologies, my lord.
Now move out and complete your objectives as assigned.
Mona says that the Wanderer from Inazuma is a Fatui harbinger, that he's extremely powerful, and that his eyes were clearly set on the Traveler. The group now believes that, because of the appearance of the Fatui and the Harbinger, that they might be the culprits behind the whole situation with the meteorites. After dealing with the large meteorite, Fish and Oz decide to leave the team, to help out with others dealing with the meteorite issues. But before leaving, Fischl thanks the group, but this time in a normal, clear-worded response. When it's called on, though, she becomes befuddled and returns to her now clearly acted form of speech. It's clear there's more to Fischl and Oz than they're letting on. With the other two gone, Mona expresses that she shaved off pieces of the larger meteorite and learned that it was centuries old, meaning Leonard lived long ago. Constellations carry the will of the individual, and this appears to continue to burn to this day, a sort of curse. They return to the guild to ask of Leonard and are told that a man by that name authored a book. The book is called Of Mountains and Seas, a guide for adventurers. The words are faded and there are missing pages, but Mona still manages to use her abilities to ascertain the text. Leonard was an adventurer from 2,000 years ago whose dream was to reach the summit of a mountain known as Pylos Peak. Mona predicts that there's a core meteorite that should have fallen, that should contain Leonard's true spirit, and predicts that it would have landed on the peak of the mountain that he mentions in the book. Since it's been so long, and since Barbados, Venti, changed the topography of the land back in the day, it's going to be difficult to find the peak. But even though the mountains fell into the ocean, the peaks still exist, and a place known as Musk Reef is where Pylos Peak is at now. They arrive and run into Scaramouche, who appeared to just wake himself from the forced dream, depicting how incredibly powerful he really is. He says that he's finished his research, that he's discovered something terrifying. He doesn't know who Leonard is when he's asked, and it doesn't appear that the Fatui actually had anything to do with the meteorite incident, and were just investigating it for other reasons. Scaramouche explains that the terrifying revelation is that the stars and the sky are a lie. What? How is this an event story? He mumbles to himself, asking what the Jester was thinking for sending them on this mission. He leaves to go find the truth. Mona says that she was taught to talk about the false sky and always thought it was just a phrase, but appears unconvinced that it still isn't. To halt the meteorite dilemma, stop the meteorites from falling, and wake all of the victims, the trio destroy the core.
With ropes, we can scale mountains. With boats, we can sail the seas. By age 40, I had conquered every last domain. Pylos Peak alone defeated me. As an adventurer, and well, maybe in other ways too. Now, I am approaching the end of my life. Many times I have sat and stared up at that peak as the boundless snow slowly engulfed me. It is a beast without weakness, the merciless face of the world. It fills me with fear. And when an adventurer loses courage, they can no longer climb mountains. My mountaineering days may be over, but I have a greater ambition now. Humans create tools to conquer nature, and when nature conquers them in return, they create better tools. Where our legs cannot take us, maybe our tools can. And when tools fail us, perhaps wings can carry us instead. My dear friend, I leave you my designs for the wings of incompletion. Against the unknown, humanity stands as one. To be alive is to seek, to set foot in every place that the eye can see. I have little time remaining, though the wind has not yet come for my soul. But between us and your children, students, and friends, I believe that someone will reach that place at last.
Leonard's will survived for centuries within the sky, and Mona discusses how astrology can truly unlock the secrets of all of history if the person is strong enough. The Traveler, Mona, and Paimon have finished the commission and learned the secrets of Leonard, the creator of the glider, but many mysteries still remain unanswered. The Fatui's ambitions, Fischl's enigmatic background, the false sky, and the truth. After the celebrations, Catherine calls for the Traveler. She tells them that there appears to be a capable man in town, and that while he didn't accept the invitation to join the guild, he may still be able to help with the search for the Traveler's sibling. While searching for the man, they learn that he's asked for strange ore at the armory and is a connoisseur of alcohol. They meet the man at Diluc's tavern and tell him that they're looking for their sibling. This man's name is Dainsleif, and without hesitation, he agrees to help the Traveler, but only if the Traveler answers 3 questions. The first question is who actually was the key to ending the Dvalin crisis, but the fact that Dainsleif uses Venti's name and knows that he's the Animal Archon throws the Traveler and Paimon for a loop. The second question is who will defend Liyue Harbor now that the Geo Archon has given away his Gnosis in a contract to end all contracts. Again, Dainsleif clearly knowing things that he probably shouldn't know. And the third and final question is, how many walkers have you killed? The third question is, who holds more importance to the gods? Those with visions or those without? Dainsleif agrees to the commission to help with the sibling, but says that he only agrees to commissions which involve the Abyss Order, as he vehemently opposes them. He says that he came to Mondstadt on a trail of an Abyss Herald, a being that commands Abyss mages. Paimon addresses that they didn't encounter any Abyss mages in Liyue, and how strange that was. And Dainsleif claims that might have been intentional as to redirect the Traveler's path. The group heads to the temple dedicated to Dvalin that Dainsleif has heard the Abyss Order is currently occupying. After defeating a few Abyss mages, Dainsleif mentions that the Herald is actually gone. He says that the Abyss is a force of chaos and destruction, and that they wish for a world no longer ruled by Archons. They then follow the trail to Wolvendom, to Andreas's domain. Dainsleif says that he doesn't know of Andreas personally, but that a previous companion of his loved stories. There are traces of the Abyss Order there too, but ultimately the traces lead to Storm Terror's lair. At the ruins, Dainsleif says that he had been there before Dvalin had even fallen under the Abyss Order's control, which was hundreds of years ago, but he brushes that fact aside. After being unable to find the Abyss Herald there too, Paimon asks Dainsleif where the traveling companion is that he keeps mentioning, and he says that they don't travel together anymore. He says he's traveling alone to deal with unfinished business, and when he's done, he will go home and rest. Just then, though, the Traveler senses something nearby, and they go to check it out. There's nothing there, and Paimon asks Dainsleif what his favorite place is. He says he can't remember, and that he simply followed his companion on their journey back in the day. They find Ruinguard footprints in a lone dandelion. The Traveler touches the dandelion, and suddenly memories come to the Traveler. Them and their sibling entering Tevat, the blazes, and the unknown god. Touching the dandelion reminded them of their sibling for some reason. Dainsleif leaves, saying that they'll meet again, and the Traveler and Paimon continue on their pursuit of the sibling. Back in Mondstadt, the pair complete more commissions to find any more clues similar to the dandelion, and end up running into Sucrose at the foot of Dragonspine. Sucrose asks the pair for a favor. She wants them to look into Albedo, as she feels that he is hiding something from her and Timaeus, likely a secret related to alchemy. Curious as well, they head up Dragonspine to Albedo's camp, and the Traveler straight up asks him if he's hiding anything. Albedo then hands the Traveler a mysterious sword and wants the Traveler to try it out. He says he found the sword and that it has unique properties where the Traveler is the only one who's able to wield it. It's a cursed sword where an ordinary person would be unable to hold it. In order to gather data, the Traveler takes out some monsters with the sword. Treasure hoarders appear and want to take the sword, saying that it was stolen. Apparently, the Knights of Favonius found treasure hoarders smuggling goods, and this sword was one of them. It's a legendary, magical sword made by a long-since-passed blacksmith, and the blacksmith disappeared after making the sword. Albedo then explains the story of Durin. Durin was the dragon that fought Dvalin and poisoned him, resulting in his slumber. When Durin was defeated by Dvalin in Barbados, its body landed on Dragonspine. Like with other demons, Durin's body gives off a dangerous aura, but because of the nature of Dragonspine, which mysteriously its snow never melts, that aura is held at bay. The sword that Albedo gave to the Traveler appears to contain parts of Durin itself within it. Its ground up eyes, claws, and scales. Normal people get driven mad due to the blade's aura, but much like with how the Traveler could purify Dvalin's tears, which were also affected by Durin's poison, they're seemingly the only person able to wield the blade. After absorbing more power for the sword from defeating foes, the pair return to Albedo to show him the results. Albedo says that there are unusual signs nearby that need investigating, and so the crew end up investigating him, and it ends up being the Fatui. It appears they're also after the sword in the same way that they're after other artifacts related to the gods. As the Traveler continues to defeat enemies with the sword, it also reacts with Durin's body on the mountain, and as such, the enemies on the mountain begin to change and become stronger and more intelligent. Albedo's sketchbook gets stolen by an intelligent hilly turtle, and while they get it back, some of the pages are destroyed. However, Albedo seems unfazed by this, and simply says that he can draw them again. And while the sword has grown increasingly more powerful, Albedo is still okay with the Traveler wielding it, saying that he trusts them because unusual people, those who are lonely and not like others, understand each other. The Traveler and Paimon run into Sucrose and let her know about the sword, since she was inquiring into Albedo's secrets, and they show her its power. They also run into an adventurer from Mondstadt who needs assistance, but the Fatui show up again wanting the sword. After the fight, Albedo finds the group, and the Traveler tells him that they told Sucrose about the sword. When showing the sword off, it's clear that it grew incredibly due to the fight with the Fatui agents, but its shimmer looks like a fire to the adventurer from earlier, and he accidentally knocks the sword to the ground, which results in the revival of a cryo-Regisfine. It also causes that same Regisfine to surge in power. Oh my god, it's absorbing the energy! Fuck, kill it! The Traveler defeats the enemy, and they return to Albedo's camp. Albedo retrieves all of the energy that was held within the sword and places it in a bottle for future research, and he allows the Traveler to keep the sword as a memento. When the Traveler and Paimon depart, Albedo says that he resonated with the energy from the sword produced by Durin, and says,
"This dragon's life force resonates with me. Not because it's a dragon, but because I am me. Rhine-daughter, Master, is this your creation? The giant dragon Durin? Was the two of us meeting really a good thing?"
The duo run into Noelle in the Favonius library, and she is fervently studying for the Knights of Favonius exam to become a knight. It's a half year away, but she's clearly stressing about it, so the Traveler helps her out, helping her to realize that she is ready to take the exams and that she really does have the true heart to become a knight. While visiting the Knights of Favonius headquarters, the pair manage to run into Klee for the first time since seeing her at the town gates with Mona. She's in a panic, though, and says that she received a threatening letter. She says the letter is from Dodo King, and it says she's not qualified to be Dodoko's new family unless she brings Dodoko to the Golden Apple Archipelago. Klee says that she went home to tell Albedo about this, but he wasn't there. Dodoko is Klee's stuffed doll that she always carries around with her. The Traveler and Paimon are unsure if the Golden Apple Archipelago is even a real place, and believe the letter to just be a prank, but they want to help Klee anyway because they're afraid that she'll wander off alone. They ask around town and nobody has heard of the place, so they go and ask Lisa, who suggests that the Traveler use elemental sight on the letter. Lo and behold, there is a map of the archipelago on the back of the letter. Wait, there's something else. Man, what's happening?
I'm not feeling too good.
There have been stories of such an archipelago that was hidden in deep fog and seemingly impossible to reach. The traveler has an idea on who to ask to go there, and Klee says that she wants to go there too, but has to ask for time off with Jean because Klee is a Knight of Favonius. They meet with Jean, who is with Barbara, and inform her of everything going on. She's reluctant at first because there's no reliable plan and it may be unsafe. Barbara attempts to convince Jean to help Klee, and the next morning it appears that it worked. Jean now wants to travel with the group to help keep Klee safe, as she'd likely just go by herself anyway, and Barbara comes along due to her medical expertise. Lisa also gave Jean a special bag that should only be opened when they are at the archipelago. The group goes to meet with Venti, as the traveler believes that he would know how to traverse to the archipelago. And lo and behold again, he does. He says he doesn't know of the name Golden Apple Archipelago, but that there used to be an archipelago that went by the name of the Har Islands. He calls forth Dvalin, and Barbara is like, and they're whisked away to the Golden Apple Archipelago. They're placed on an island in the dense fog, but are able to see due to a portable waypoint being placed there. The letter speaks of lighting 4 beacons, so the group decides to search for them. They find a boat that appears to have been placed there for them and use it to find the waypoints which dissipate the fog. They stay the night on an island, and when the traveler awakens, they find Jean and Barbara in summer outfits. Only $29.99! The clothes actually came from the bag that Lisa gave to Jean. In the ocean, it appears large buoys have sprung out overnight, and after destroying them, the islands rise above the ocean, and the full nature of the archipelago reveals itself.
What's happening? It's a whole bunch of islands.
They all head to the platform in the middle of the archipelago and find a humanoid machine of some sort. Jean expresses that it's likely from Inazuma due to its design. On the same island, they find a memorial, likely related to the machine. It also appears that humans did exist on this island at some point, as there are ruins, but they no longer do, and there are no gravestones, showing that any people that did exist there likely left. They spend another night on the islands and awaken to see white smoke billowing from one of the islands. They go to look and find Kaeya and Diluc. They say that they flew over on Dvalin as well after noticing the dragon flying away when it carried the first team. They also state that they came with Razor and Albedo, but Razor jumped from Dvalin to an island and Albedo seems to have slipped away somewhere. They find Albedo, and apparently all 4 of them received letters from Dodo King like Klee did, except they all contained different coercive details. Albedo said someone had Klee and that she was in danger. Kaeya said that there was pirate treasure. Razor said Klee needed help, and Diluc said that there was an Abyss Order stronghold there. The group travels to the central platform again in search of Razor, and he found a component that is clearly for the mechanical humanoid. When it's inserted into it, the automaton is revived and attacks the group. Once it's subdued, it drops 3 crystals and another letter. The letter points them to a certain island with an energy shield surrounding it, and the riddle within the letter allows the group to learn how to remove the shield. They must wait a night before opening the barrier though, and the group decides to relax a bit. Klee is clearly enjoying herself, and the scenery seems to be affecting everyone positively. The next day they're able to open the barrier, and before they do, everyone assures Klee that, regardless of what's behind the shield, they're there for her, and they'll protect her, no matter what. Through a phonograph, the group learns that Dodo King was in fact fake, and that it was all a lie created by Klee's mom, Alice. She's the same Alice that wrote the Teyvat travel guide volumes that the Traveler and Paimon have been reading, and also the same Alice that Mona's master is a rival with. It appears Alice is an extremely powerful sorceress, near omnipotent levels based on what Albedo says, and she herself explains that she turned these islands into a summer getaway for Klee and the group. Alice says she gave letters to those closest to Klee so that Klee could spend time with those closest to her in this summer paradise. Alice also explains that, like her, Klee is from a race blessed with longevity. Albedo is also within that family tree, as he calls Alice his aunt, which means that Klee is his cousin, who he appears to be taking care of while Alice is away. With those revelations out of the way, the group is finally able to relax a bit and take it easy in the island paradise. Klee, overjoyed, gets to spend time with those that she loves, and the group is able to truly relax for the first time in a while. While in Mondstadt, the pair happen upon a child playing with an imaginary friend, and the Traveler tells Paimon that he used to have an imaginary friend too, just not anymore. Well, it's me. I'm the imaginary friend. Venti shows up saying that he has a new device created by Lisa, a monocle that has some imported materials from Sumeru, the nation associated with the Dendro Archon, and that it's a device that can see imaginary friends. He states that he was given the device because Lisa is unable to use it for some reason, and poses that it might require some sense of childlike wonder to use. The Traveler uses it and can actually see the imaginary friend of the girl, and they decide to go around town and use it on more people. The shop owner of the floral shop has a plant-based imaginary friend, and says that she only came up with it because of an adventurer named Stanley, who supposedly went to a dangerous place named the Mare Javare, where no wind reaches. Timmy, who's on the bridge and his father abandoned him, has a ruin guard imaginary friend, so they don't fuck with him. Next up is trying the device on adults at the tavern, and they run into Kaeya and Diluc. They happen upon a conversation between Kaeya and Diluc in which Kaeya claims that Diluc threw out father's legacy and sold off his mansion, but has kept a certain vase. Using the monocle reveals that none of them have an imaginary friend. Venti wants to figure out at what age people lose imaginary friends, so they go and see a young woman by the name of Ellen, who dreams of becoming a Knight of Favonius. Her imaginary friend appears to just be Jean, who she really looks up to. She asks for the Traveler to help her with some sword training, and afterward asks the Traveler to deliver a message to an adventurer named Jack, who's with Stanley right now. Ellen also mentions how renowned Stanley is, and how amazing his stories from his past really are. They find them both in a ruin and give them Ellen's message. Stanley, being really full of himself and pompous, decides to continue within the ruins, so the group heads forward. Stanley speaks of his trek in the Mare Javare in his past, how it's a sea of ashes, and how he went there with a partner of his who didn't make it back from the journey. They reach the end of the ruin, and the Traveler decides to use the monocle on Stanley, and surprisingly, he has an imaginary friend. It appears to be a version of himself. Stanley leaves the ruins, and Jack asks a favor of the group. He says that when Stanley was drunk one time, he told him how he used to use ancient weapons, a sword and a shield wielded by Vanessa herself, and that they're currently in Dadaopa Gorge near Mondstadt. Jack asks the three if they can help him find the sword and shield, because he wants to show them to his parents to convince them to be okay with him being an adventurer, and the group agrees to help. It's clear, though, that Stanley overheard the conversation. While in the gorge, the group finds a junk sword, which is supposed to be the legendary sword, and Jack is dejected. Venti, though, is able to convince him that the sword is actually extraordinary through his amazing storytelling abilities. The group, besides Jack, notices Stanley following them, but go on to look for the shield. Once again, they find a dookie-ass item, this time a shield, and once again, Venti convinces Jack that it's extraordinary somehow. After having both of the legendary items, Jack leaves, and the group confronts Stanley. He clearly planted the weapons there because he told Jack about them, but he continues the front that he's an amazing adventurer and departs. Venti expresses how Stanley must be stuck in the past and is sacrificing the present for it, and he wonders what would happen if a person like that was forced to move forward. The Traveler, Paimon, and Venti go to Diluc's tavern to end their night and find a plastered Stanley there instead, muttering to himself. He keeps calling for Stanley and speaks of how Stanley is actually his friend who died in the Mare Javari. He took his name and was actually a rookie adventurer at the time they both went to the Mare Javari, and the man whose real name is Stanley actually saved him and died in the process. The current Stanley took on the name Stanley and spread stories of his friends' adventurers so that the true Stanley would be remembered. Stanley calls out the group for eavesdropping, and Jack appears at the tavern, saying that the weapons actually did manage to convince his parents that he can become an adventurer. Jack says that Stanley's stories are ultimately what convinced him to become an adventurer in the first place, and then he leaves. Stanley mentions how pure-hearted Jack's adventurer's spirit is. Stanley, on the other hand, only has hazy memories of adventures past. He's beginning to forget details about Stanley's adventures. He says that Stanley died in a windless land, and so his spirit can never be recovered by the Animo Archon. The group now realizes that Stanley's imaginary friend wasn't himself, but his own vision of his dead friend.
Hans Archibald.
My true name? How did you know? The wind. I can hear the wind blowing in the Mare Javari. I always believed you existed.
Will you hand me your old friend's spirit?
After Venti puts Stanley at peace, revealing his true self to Hans, the group meets on the hands of Barbados' statue. Venti says that the first time he viewed this land, he didn't look the way that he does now. That 2,600 years ago, before the Seven were even a thing, when Mondstadt was ruled by a tyrant and when the city was actually in Storm Terror's lair, where its ruins now lie, the city was sealed off with a torrent, and nothing could get in or out. The tyrant's name was Decarabian, god of storms. During this time, Venti was just a wisp, a small elemental being, not a god or even a human. Like Stanley, Venti's current form is one of a friend.
In old Mondstadt transpired the story to be told, where a tyrant ruled. I met a boy not that old. The lyre he played, and for a song he sought. But storm walls blocked blue sky. He was sincerely distraught. I do so wish to see the birds in flight, said he, his strong eyes filling with light. But his voice was lost in the howling wind's churn, for the whirlwind takes and gives not in return. The true sky and songs that cageless soar, were they not wishes worth fighting for? So the boy turned, extending his hand. Let us cast down the tyrant and his walls from this land. The young boy raised then the flag of revolt, and I threw myself into freedom's tumult. Victorious were we who fought to be free. Gods fell, winds whipped, nations shook violently. In the smoke, a despot met his doom, and we watched as his great tower fell none too soon. Mondstadt began anew, the story passed down, and since then never has another worn its crown.
It's clear that Venti's friend, like with Stanley's, died as well. The Traveler sends Paimon away because of Venti's somberness, and Venti mentions a song that he heard from his long-since passed friend. Fly, fly away, like a bird in the sky. See the world on my behalf. To the heavens may you fly. The Traveler and Paimon had become accustomed to the lands of Mondstadt and Liyue and now perform commissions that have them traveling between the nations. It's nearing the time of a festival in Liyue called the Lantern Rite Festival, and one commission before the festival leads the pair to Wuwang Hill. They run into a man named Meng who thinks that they're ghosts and freaks out. The pair follow Meng, and he's with a woman named Hu Tao. She's the director of Wangsheng Funeral Parlor, where Xiangling is a consultant, and Meng is the new undertaker there. Hu Tao is dark?
Who as in, who put me in this coffin? And Tao as in, I can't get out. No, not funny.
She also speaks to the Traveler and Paimon as clients to the funeral parlor and speaks to them about deals. Meng explains that they're at Wuwang Hill to perform a funeral ceremony to restore calm to the area, as there was supposedly supernatural activity there. The Traveler explains that they're from the Adventurers Guild, and this sparks interest in Hu Tao, who says she's been trying to start a business deal with the guild and wants the Traveler to help her with that. In return, she'll apparently speak to the dead about the Traveler's siblings' whereabouts. At the Adventurers Guild, they're not exactly down for the deal that Hu Tao proposes, particularly because it's pretty morbid. But Hu Tao seems pretty set on trying to expand her business in any way possible. The group goes to the funeral parlor where Hu Tao discusses marketing opportunities, such as going door to door and issuing coupons. She's definitely not liked by many people. Hu Tao mentions how the job of the funeral parlor is to guard the border between life and death, and to keep the public at bay about their ideas of the afterlife. Basically, make sure they don't know the truth. Meng mentions someone named Big G to Hu Tao, and Hu Tao promises to take care of it. But first, they go to potential clients, and as usual, Hu Tao is pretty morbid and dark, and it pisses people off.
You keep
This might be a bit of a crowd.
I'm actually fucking fuming right now.
These people were actually not clients, but people that Hu Tao suspects are being followed by a spirit, one who's named Big G, the one Meng mentioned. Big G, Meng, and the people that she just harassed all grew up together near Wuwang Hill, but an accident happened and Big G was Big D. He's appearing in Meng's dreams now, and Meng believes that Big G might have become an evil spirit, so he joined the funeral parlor to deal with it. Hu Tao doesn't believe Big G became an evil spirit though, because the odds of that happening are apparently incredibly slim. Just then, a man appears, claiming that he was cursed by a demon at Wuwang Hill, and Hu Tao plays along. She wants to lift the curse, and takes the Traveler and Paimon to a monolith to perform a ritual to rid the curse. She tells the pair that Meng and the other man have clearly lost their minds a bit, and that this is why the general public needs to be kept in the dark about the realities of spirits and the afterlife. So she's performing this fake ritual to convince the man that the curse isn't real. She also mentions the story of the Akshas, one being Xiao, who fought against ancient gods during the Archon War. Like with Durin and his residual energy on Dragonspine, when the gods in the Archon War were killed, their resentment stayed, and this resentment turned into a plague that ravaged the whole world. The general public believed it to be a curse as well, when the natural occurrence resulting from the death of the gods was the actual reason. But a select few individuals learned how to handle the plague because they looked at it reasonably, and they learned to purify the air and burn the bodies of the dead who were infected, thus ultimately resulting in the eradication of the plague. These people were the founders of the Wangsheng Funeral Parlor. This is what it means to guard the border. They perform the ritual and convince the man that his beliefs are unfounded, and afterwards, oh, a ghost, oh fuck! Oh, it's just Big PP. Back at the funeral parlor, Big G says he followed the man who thought he was cursed back to Liyue, which is what actually led to the man being sick and thinking he was cursed in the first place. Big Me wants to see his friends, so the Traveler and Paimon go to get farewell items from them for a ceremony. It appears the three somehow already knew what was going on, and they give them items. One of them being an artisan Xiao lantern, which are being made for the upcoming Lantern Rite Festival in the harbor. A Xiao lantern is meant to have the user write their wish on the lantern, and when it's released, the wish is supposed to come true. The pair meet Meng and Hu Tao at Wuwang Hill, and they head to the entrance of the border between life and death. After traversing for a while, they make it to the border. There, they find many spirits waiting to move on. my god. Where am I? Am I dead? Am I dead? Well, I did choke on some bar nuts. Oh, I said that I choked on these nuts. I'll never see my parents again. They see a memory of Meng, Big G, and the others when they were children where they tell each other about their dreams, but they don't get to hear Meng or Big G's wish. All of the others have fulfilled their dreams. Hu Tao mentions that when her forefathers cured the plague, Liyue Harbor prospered, but there then came a time in which people brought back the legacy of the dead, and used remnants of the dead gods to create items, like with the sword that was created from Durin that the Traveler used, which resulted in death ravaging the world again. Big G and Meng send off the Xiao lantern within the border, and they all return to Wuwang Hill. They all say their goodbyes to Big G, who crosses over. Meng declares that both of their wishes when they were children were to have their families experience the Lantern Rite together, and that they'll never achieve that wish now. But Hu Tao reminds him to enjoy his life while he has it, and that he'll meet Big G again in the afterlife. Hu Tao tells the Traveler that she asked the spirits about the whereabouts of their sibling, but there were no leads. Which, in a way, is good, because it definitely means their sibling hasn't passed away. She mentions how she's happy with her career because she's never seen the spirits of previous funeral parlor directors at the border, which means that they felt fulfilled in their lives enough to cross over. With those words, Hu Tao continues her thankless job of guarding the border, and the Traveler continues forward with the knowledge that his sibling is still in the world of the living. Lantern Rite has begun, and at the Wangshu Inn it's explained that the festival is to celebrate the heroes of the past, and that on the last night of the festival, Liyue Harbor releases Xiao and Mingxiao lanterns made of plastrite into the sky to guide past heroes back home. The Mingxiao lantern is dedicated to an adeptus named Skybracer this year, who sacrificed himself for the people of Liyue. The innkeeper asks the pair if they can ask Xiao to partake in the festival whenever they see him, as he's apparently in low spirits. At Liyue Harbor, all of the business people come together to raise money and materials for the Mingxiao lantern, and the locals carve their wishes into smaller Xiao lanterns. The pair want to learn how to make a lantern so they can give one to Xiao, and they find plastrite to put into the Mingxiao lantern. On the plastrite, the Traveler doesn't carve their own wish on the lantern, but their siblings. While at the docks running some errands for workers, they find a shady character messing with the festival materials. They inform the Ministry of Civil Affairs of the encounter, but it seems they're spread thin due to the festival. They go to find a soldier responsible for the docks, but he's too busy too. The two decide to go back to the docks to be the ones watching it, and find that man again, along with Xiao. Xiao says he felt a bad influence and came to investigate. It also appears the man from earlier left behind a symbol.
What the hell?
The pair thinks that Kaeya may know what it means, so they return to Mondstadt to ask him. They tell Kaeya they've come from the Lantern Rite festival, and he mentions how the pair may enjoy a festival later in the year for Mondstadt called Ludi Harpastum, which is different from the Windbloom festival they had earlier in the year. No wonder so many people are alcoholics in Mondstadt, am I right? Alcoholism is so funny. But seriously, it breaks families apart. Do not joke about that. Not like gambling, though. I'm gonna do another multi. Oh my god, where's my credit card? Ah! Kaeya does know the symbol and says that it represents the treasure hoarders, so he schedules them a meeting with an informant that he knows. The informant says he doesn't believe this is actually the doings of the treasure hoarders because it's much too risky for them. It appears the treasure hoarder Liyue branch received a mysterious letter that might be related to this plot, and so the Traveler and Paimon go to find out what it says. Xiao meets them there, and they retrieve the letter which asks the treasure hoarders to meet the sender near Liyue for a mission, potentially to affect all of the harbor. Even the treasure hoarders aren't down for that, though, and so the three plan to go meet the author of the letter at the location instead. Before that, though, they ask Xiao if he wants to go to Liyue Harbor to see the releasing of the lanterns afterwards, and he just says he can see them from the inn, and they're like, yeah, but like, it doesn't have to be a date if you don't want it to be a date, you know, we can call it something else. He's gone. The pair thwarts the unknown man, who's actually just an apprentice thief who super respects the treasure hoarders and wanted to impress them. His plan wasn't to actually destroy the harbor, but to just steal Plostrite. He's kinda a Dumbo, and they hand him over to the Monolith. With some time to spare before the final day of the festival, the Traveler and Paimon partake in local festival delicacies, games, and help locals with fulfilling their wishes. Before the final day, they go to see Xiao again. He's still not down to go, but they tell him that the Mingjiao lantern this year is Skybracer, and Xiao seems to remember him, but he still won't go. While talking to the innkeeper, the pair is told that Xiao has never been to a lantern rite before, so they decide to bring the festival to him instead, by making lanterns and serving festival foods. They set it all up below the inn and bring Xiao down and give him his favorite foods. It's super cute. After softening Xiao up with all the festivities, they ask for him to escort them to the city, and he agrees. At the entrance to the city, Xiao expresses that his life has been mostly pain, suffering, and death, and that being around a crowd of happy people will essentially only make that more obvious. Xiao decides to not enter the city, but says that if they ever need help, to just call his name, and he'll be there. After the festival, the pair go to the Adventurers Guild to pick up more commissions and run into Ganyu. It appears two notorious treasure hoarders, one in Mondstadt and one in Liyue, are planning a joint operation against the Abyss Order. Those treasure hoarders are Raptor of the North, the same Raptor that the gang faced with Amber, and Big Sis of the South. She's the leader of the Liyue division of the treasure hoarders and is said to have been gifted by the god of the thieves. The treasure hoarders have found hidden ruins that house some of the Abyss Order and plan to go in and steal any ancient treasure that the ruins may house. To do this, the treasure hoarders hired a grand thief from the land of Fontaine, as renowned to the treasure hoarders as Alice or Stanley is to the Adventurers Guild, to enter the ruins, while they cause a diversion on the outside. The Traveler and Paimon take on the commission to investigate the ruins and the treasure hoarders' actions. Inside, there's no sign of the Abyss Order within the ruins, likely due to the diversion plan, and they follow a treasure hoarder trail to the inner depths of the ruins. There they find the grand thief from Fontaine hunched over in a praying position in front of an upside-down statue of the Seven with a strange aura flowing around its hands. The grand thief is dead! Just then the ruins begin to fall apart and the pair are forced to flee. Hurry, get the fucking healies! Near the entrance, they happen upon a member of the Abyss Order, an Abyss Herald, the being spoken of by Dainsleif, who seeks to end them for seeing Abyss secrets. He mentions how Dainsleif is constantly interfering in the Abyss Order's affairs. The Abyss Herald is stronger than any member of the Abyss that the pair has fought before, and after the encounter, the Herald mentions the Traveler's power, how it's familiar, and how they are the One. After leaving the ruins, they actually do encounter Dainsleif. They tell him of what they encountered in the ruins, and they chase after the Herald with him joining the team. They find Abyss Mages who are rummaging through ruin guards, and it appears they're looking for something specific. Paimon expresses how whenever there's an Abyss Order stronghold, there's always a ruin guard around for some reason. Dainsleif explains that this isn't a coincidence, that both the ruin guards and the Abyss Mages originated from a nation called Conria, which was destroyed 500 years ago. The Traveler realizes that this must be the nation from their reawakened memories, the memories of a nation on fire. They tell Dainsleif and Paimon of their returned memories, of how they were initially awoken on Teyvat from within a fallen meteor by their sibling, and actually witnessed Conria's destruction. Afterwards, the Traveler's sibling told them that the destruction of the nation plunged the world into chaos, and that they needed to leave Teyvat for good. But when trying to flee, the pair ran into the unknown god. Paimon wonders how much longer the Traveler's sibling awoke on Teyvat before them. Dainsleif says that Conria was a nation without a god, and that it was the pride of humankind, but it was destroyed by the gods. This information makes the Traveler realize that they need to ask Venti and Xiangling about Conria as soon as possible. But the search for the Herald takes precedence, and they continue to follow the traces. They find more Abyss Mages and Ruin Guards, and Dainsleif describes how the name Ruin Guard is a modern descriptor, and that the Conrians called them Field Tillers, which sounds like farm equipment, but is actually a code name. Conrians gave code words to all of their weapons of war, and they named the Ruin Guards Field Tillers because they believe that the land is farmed with steel and blood. Fucking gnarly. The Field Tillers are now masterless, and thus just wander and destroy. After its defeat, one of the Abyss Mages drops a talisman with Conrian script on it, and Dainsleif is able to read the language. It says, "Engulf the faith of the enemy in flame, and bring glory to the royal. The loom of fate, initial operation." The talisman contains the details of the operation, which the first phase involves Osial, and is using ancient technology to transform Osial's body and corrupt its mind in the same way that was done to Dvalin. The defiled statue will be used as a base for the newly constructed body for Osial. The core of this body, to allow its operation, must be the eye of the very first Field Tiller. This transformed Osial will then be used to topple Celestia, the land of the gods. The group decides to search for the eye, and so they head to the Mondstadt Cathedral to inquire about the flipped statue they saw, as that's the only lead they currently have. When they arrive in Mondstadt, Dainsleif seems to resent the statue of Barbados due to its grandiose nature. He also declines to enter the cathedral with the others. Dainsleif, are you an atheist?
You're not doing science. This is not science. Keep it out.
He says to not tell the church about the defiled statue though, as that would force them to investigate and ruin the upper hand that the three currently have on the Abyss. Instead, the two ask Barbara if the church has ever lost a statue, and it appears that there's a story attached to a lost statue after all. There's also another story called The Tyrant's Final Fury, which depicts a time in Old Mondstadt, where Stormterror's lair currently resides, where flaming meteors attacked whoever approached. The people at the time believed that it was a curse of the god of the storms, Dekarabian, who was the tyrant that ruled Mondstadt until the rebellion occurred. Rosaria appears to inform the group that the knights are currently fighting Abyss Mages in Wolvendom, and so they inform Dainsleif. Paimon is worried that Andrias will be corrupted by the Abyss Order like Dvalin was, but Dainsleif makes it clear that that's impossible, since Andrias is already dead and is merely a spirit. He thinks that they're targeting Andrias for information instead. At Wolvendom, the group fights some Abyss Mages, but afterward, Dainsleif decides to not go any further. He claims that he can't go near Andrias since he vehemently disagrees with him, since Andrias was an old god who then became subservient to the Seven. It's clear at this point that Dainsleif doesn't hold the Seven in high regard at all, and openly despises them. He tells the traveler to always be on their guard around gods, and to not place too much trust in them. But he makes it clear that they shouldn't be fought against either. Dainsleif reveals that the Abyss Order wants to destroy the nations ruled by the Seven and the gods because of Conria's destruction by them. Dainsleif leaves to deal with the Abyss mages in the surrounding area, and Jean meets with the group and clarifies her presence in the area, and asks the traveler to go and check on Andrias since they know him. They arrive and Razor and Andrias are struggling with an Abyss Herald. The Herald tells Andrias that if Andrias helps the Abyss, they will restore his former powers. He denies though, and the Traveler and Razor fight off the Herald. The Herald claims that the ceremony was interrupted and books it. Andrias thanks the Traveler, calling them their human Lupical. They ask Andrias about the first field tiller, and he recalls a machine that wandered into the area in the past that could shoot fireballs and was stronger than some vision bearers. They tell Dainsleif of the new information, and he connects it with the Tyrant story. It must have been the first field tiller that was raining fire on unsuspecting travelers into Old Mondstadt. With this information pieced together, the Traveler remembers an inactive ruin guard in Stormterror's lair that they first saw when they went there to save Dvalin, and so the group journey there to see if that is indeed the field tiller. The Traveler uses elemental sight on the field tiller, but to no avail. Dainsleif suggests that nothing happened because field tillers aren't powered by elemental energy, and he finds the eye instead. This field tiller was the very first, and as a result, its combat abilities weren't restricted, which seems to be why the eye is so important. Dainsleif decides to guard the eye himself. To completely thwart the Abyss Order's plan, they decide that they need to destroy the defiled statue as well. They make their way back into the ruins to see the statue and are met with the Abyss Herald from earlier. After all of their journeying and searching, the Traveler has managed to meet their sibling. But it appears the sibling is protecting the Herald, and they even ask why the Traveler is with Dainsleif. Dainsleif knows the sibling's name, and the sibling tells the Traveler to not team up with him, and that he's their enemy, and to try and not stop the Abyss. The sibling reveals that Dainsleif is actually from Conria, that he went by the title of the Twilight Sword and was a royal guard for the last dynasty of the nation. He failed his duty to protect Conria, and because of this, he was cursed with immortality. And those who he was supposed to protect, the citizens of Conria, turned into monsters. They turned into the Abyss Order. The Traveler continues to plead with their sibling, trying to convince them to stop and to return home with them, but the sibling refuses. They say that home is wherever the Traveler is, but they can't leave. Not yet. That their war with destiny won't end until the Abyss Order has engulfed the thrones. The sibling clarifies that they've traversed all of Teyvat before, and that once the Traveler does the same, they'll understand the true nature of the world and why the sibling is doing what they're doing.
So we'll meet again. Though we need not rush, brother. I have more than enough time to wait for you. We have always had enough time.
The Traveler is more informed and confused than ever. Their sibling works for the Abyss Order, seemingly leading it on a quest against destiny and gods. Dainsleif knows of their sibling and is a member of a long-since destroyed nation, the same nation which citizens now solely populate, the Abyss Order. There remain many unanswered questions, but with the sibling now found, the Traveler is invigorated with newfound determination. To solve the mysteries of the Abyss and their siblings' plot, the Traveler must continue on their journey. Back in Liyue Harbor, Catherine tells the pair that a miner at the docks has requested help from the guild, and sends the two to assist. Once there, the man says that he's also enlisted the help of an industry expert, as the matter is rather complicated. The expert is Jimmy Fallon?
They get me involved with this?
The pair seek out Xiangling as they believe he would be a better expert, and also because they have new questions to ask him since their run-in with the sibling. Xiangling agrees to help, and when they return to the miner, the other industry expert is there as well, whose name is Chongyun. Chongyun claims to recognize Xiangling, but can't seem to pinpoint from where. Chongyun says that he doesn't remember why he's in Liyue Harbor, and that the miner is who picked him up. Paimon gets Chongyun and Xiangling to battle in a test of who's the better geology expert, and both clearly know geology very well. Everyone journeys to the chasm, a closed-off mine, and there they begin their search for the 4 missing miners who have been missing for almost a week. They find some of their materials, extra clothes and food, but their tools are missing. Chongyun finds an ore nearby and sees the ore's memories, which show the 4 men following a child. Xiangling notes how this is known as stone seeing, which is a rare ability. They find a worker who claims that he was asleep, and when he awoke, his colleagues were missing. The group gives these clues to the head miner and claims that the miners might have been kidnapped. The miner goes to investigate nearby settlements and tells the group to continue their investigation. Chongyun says that he's looking for an ore known as Dragonfall, that he has amnesia, and aside from his name, he really can't remember much else, but the need to find Dragonfall has stayed in his memories, as well as a sense of anxiousness. They follow the trail of the miners and rescue a passerby who was being attacked by a group of especially aggressive Geovishap hatchlings, and she says she had seen the miners earlier. Chongyun again uses stone seeing to confirm it's them. They appear to be in a trance following the child as if they're asleep. What are they dreaming about?
You could stop at 5 or 6 stores, or just one.
Following the trail leads them to an exhausted miner who continues to say that he can dig while trying to stand. The group takes him to a camp where Chongyun finds ore fragments in his pocket. It shows that he is one of the 4 missing miners. Chongyun says that the journeying with this group has caused his mind to defog a bit, and he gives them all crystals that he says he bought in Liyue Harbor as thanks. Chongyun goes to look at more stone memories in the surrounding area, and Xiangling asks the traveler if they've heard of Dragonfall before. He says that unlike normal ore, Dragonfall is a product of elemental reactions and first came into existence during a great battle in the past. But due to their nature, they became scarce very quickly and are beyond a rarity now. Xiangling wonders why it is that Chongyun is looking for it now. Their investigation leads them to an immense crystal-rich tree. There, a monument sits in front of the tree and appears to affect Chongyun. Behind the tree exists a newly dug tunnel.
Huh?
Listen.
The missing miners are here! What are they digging for?
I'm afraid that this whole tunnel is the fruit of their strenuous labor.
Huh? That gate! Has it been there all along?
Digging a tunnel to this ancient seal. Had they not been discovered, they would undoubtedly persevere until the gate.
So behind the seal, there's...
On the other side of the seal, a Vishap-like monster reveals itself, named Azhdaha. It appears Azhdaha used its power to manifest the little girl that kidnapped the miners, and he claims that this is revenge for Xiangling sealing him. They do battle, and during the battle, they're mysteriously given a buff, like with the battle in the sky with the Fallen. After defeating him, Azhdaha states that it's been 1,000 years since he was sealed there, and he mocks Xiangling. But Chongyun steps forward to refute. Chongyun is actually Azhdaha as well. Well, a fragment of Azhdaha, and he gave them power during the battle. The little girl version of Azhdaha and Chongyun's version are a separation of the will, polar opposites of one another. At one point, Azhdaha's seal began to loosen, letting forth those two versions. The little girl version used the opening of the seal to try and release it by kidnapping miners to dig up the seal and attack it from both sides to get Azhdaha out. Chongyun's version, on the other hand, decided to seek out Xiangling to stop his other half's plan. Chongyun tells the traveler in Paimon that Azhdaha was an ally of Xiangling's in the past, but because Azhdaha was made of stone, his consciousness began to erode, and this erosion led to madness. The exploitation of the earth by overmining affected the ley lines, which led to suffering by Azhdaha and further madness. The little girl, the manifestation of erosion and hate, fades away. And with Chongyun's version, a manifestation of the contract or the cooperation with humans begins to fade as well. They leave the chamber to help the miners first. The miners are rescued, and Azhdaha mentions how he might reawaken in the future again, with Xiangling promising, though, that Liyue will be prepared, that it's a strong nation, even without a god. Azhdaha admits that Xiangling could have struck him down in the past when he went insane, but was kind enough to seal him away instead. Azhdaha promises that someday he'll meet Xiangling again, that while erosion will affect him differently, and that Xiangling will live for countless days to come, that erosion will still come for him someday as well. Azhdaha's spirit fades, and the person that he was possessing, Chongyun, is free.
In our last tale, Rex Lapis was walking alone in the mountains. He heard a remote voice, unlike any other, coming from a crack in the earth.
Most of the ancient geo life forms that live below Liyue are blind, having not seen the sunlight for an age.
The voice was sometimes sad and song-like. Other times it was loud and thunderous. The Lord of Geo searched here and there before finally unearthing a strange stone from the bedrock.
That's how Azhdaha was. I answered his wish and took him above ground.
The Lord of Geo took pity on the rock spirit and carved it into a magnificent work of craftsmanship, a vivid representation of a dragon.
I bestowed him with a pair of eyes to see the world and came to an agreement with him.
With his fingers, he made 2 eyes. Quicker than words could tell, lightning flashed and thunder roared, and a living, breathing dragon soared into the clouds.
I agreed to let him live among the people above ground, but if the day ever came when he brought ruin to order, he would once again be sealed in the dark.
The dragon accompanied the Lord of Geo, fighting campaigns alongside him in the 4 corners of the world. We have a saying to eulogize these events. The crash of a spear brought billowing dust. The mountains and waters made way at the sound. The sight of a dragon bestowed with a touch the promise of rainwater blessing the ground.
Xiangling at the monument for Azhdaha mentions how 1,000 years ago, Azhdaha attacked the chasm when he went mad, and that was when he sealed him away. It was this clash that created Dragonfall. That's why the possessed Chongyun was trying to find it, because he was trying to find Xiangling. With time, all erode, and the greater the power, the greater the danger that happens as a result of that erosion. The pair ask Xiangling if that's why he stepped down from being the Geo Archon. Even though he's no longer the Geo Archon, Xiangling says that he still wishes to see the history of humanity. He thanks the pair for helping, but the traveler decides to now ask him about Khaenri'ah. This clearly takes Xiangling off guard though, and he says that he can't speak of that time. Not because he doesn't want to, but because of a contract of silence.
It appears your understanding of this world continues to grow. There are many events of ages past, many secrets that lie hidden. They have been eroded by time, forgotten by the people, abandoned. But you are capable of finding them and bringing them into the light. Those who come to witness will witness. Those who are born to remember will remember. If you take the same road as that person, there may be more difficulties ahead. But as long as you firmly believe that you are on the right path, everything has meaning.
With Xiangling consulted about Khaenri'ah, all of their current leads have run dry. Besides the siblings' request to reach the end of their journey, Paimon comforts the traveler, telling them that they must keep moving. The traveler mentions how they need to find that god, the god that stopped them and their sibling from leaving Teyvat, and get answers. That seems to be the journey currently. The next step then is Inazuma to meet with the Electro Archon, but from what they've heard, Inazuma is a closed nation, so getting in will be difficult. But there's one person they both remember who's from Inazuma, and that's Atsuko in the harbor. They find Atsuko at the harbor and ask her how she managed to even leave Inazuma. She said that she hopped aboard a raft and floated on the open ocean for a time, till her supplies ran out. She was near death, and all of her mistakes in life came back to her. Like, did she really spend months on a Genshin Impact script thinking it would be finished before 2.0 and now it's almost 2.0? But then she was saved by a Liyue local. Aww. Paimon asks why she even took the journey to begin with, and Atsuko explains how suffocating Inazuma currently is. The Kanjo Commission enforces the restrictions in Inazuma. The Kanjo Commission is one of the 3 commissions in Inazuma, known as the Tri-Commission. Together, they're akin to the Liyue Qixing in their duties over Inazuma. The Kanjo Commission are tasked with identity checks on everyone entering and leaving Inazuma on its port island known as Rito. Another commission, the Tenryou Commission, enforce the decrees of the Shogun and thus implement the Vision Hunt Decree, taking away people's visions. All of this leads to an oppressive and restrictive nation with very little freedom. Atsuko suggests not going to Inazuma because of all of this, but the traveler makes it clear that they're continuing their journey regardless of the dangers. Atsuko further explains that there are perpetual storms around Inazuma, and that even if they did make it past those, they would still need to make it past the samurai guards that enforced the Sakoku Decree, the decree that closed off the nation, and even then they would need documents to show at the processing center on Rito. But such documentation is difficult to acquire, as the port is essentially only used to receive trade goods and information. Atsuko suggests that if they're still dead set on going, they could ask for assistance from the Crux fleet, a well-traveled fleet which could break through the storms. The Alcor, the flagship of the fleet, and Beidou, the captain, happen to currently be in Liyue, and so the pair track them down. On the ship, Beidou recognizes the pair, saying that Ningguang told her about them. A mysterious man says that both the traveler and Paimon give off the essence of the stars, and says that their meeting must be fate. His name is Kaedehara Kazuha, a temporary crew member of the Crux fleet. Beidou mentions an event known as The Clash, thinking the pair are there to sign up. It's a martial arts tournament for renowned fighters without visions. She says that the prize for winning the tournament is a masterless vision, supplied by Kazuha. He explains that when a vision bearer dies, the light in their vision fades and becomes a masterless vision. He believes that it may be possible for a person to reawaken one and make it their own. The pair say they're not interested and just want to make it out to Inazuma instead, but Beidou says that if they win the clash, that she'll grant them a trip there instead of giving them the masterless vision. The pair head over to the tournament site and meet some of the competitors. They're a little underwhelming.
So, Paimon's wondering, are you a renowned fighter?
When 5 million fans follow, CEO Dewey will invite Elon Musk to visit MiHoYo HQ.
They sign up for the tournament, and people clearly know the duo. They're pretty famous now because of all their exploits. The Traveler begins the tournament with his first match and decides to not use his elemental abilities since the tournament isn't for vision bearers. They don't want to arouse suspicion. After the battle, Beidou acknowledges how powerful the Traveler is and moves them straight to the semifinals. The opponent for the semifinals is...
Hey, Traveler, so I heard that you maybe killed my brother.
Kill it!
Not exactly happy about that, so I'm probably gonna fight you and kill both of you, so I guess be prepared. Well, you beat me, so we're probably rivals now, which means I'll probably be back to kill you both. So, bye!
After winning the match, the pair hear rumors of their opponent for the finals. Apparently, the individual is incredibly agile. The pair speaks with Beidou and Kazuha, who notice that the Traveler wasn't using their elemental abilities. Kazuha figured this out with his keen sense, and Beidou from her experience. Prior to the finals, Kazuha asks to speak with the pair in private to prepare the Traveler for the finals. He says that he was a wandering samurai in Inazuma who's well-versed in literary and combat skills. He's able to sense that the pair have been to Mondstadt by sensing nature's trace. At their private meeting, Kazuha mentions how he can tell the Traveler can manipulate multiple elements. He says he knows this because since a young age, he's been able to sense and hear nature. He is able to sense it in the Traveler, which allowed him to discern their abilities. He's impressed with the ability to wield multiple elements, nonetheless without a vision. And he's even impressed with Paimon for having a complex scent. Wait, Paimon, did you shit your pants again? Kazuha inquires how the Traveler was able to harness multiple elements to begin with, and they say it's from the statues of the Seven and Paimon's guidance. After showing Kazuha their ability to manipulate multiple elements, Kazuha explains how the Traveler's opponent for the finals knows how to control his breathing and detect weak points, which grants him the art of surprise. Kazuha says that he's interested in the idea of elements and visions because he wants to know what influences the god's choice in granting them. The pair ask him to depart any information that he has about Inazuma, and he speaks of the Vision Hunt Decree, that people are getting theirs taken, and sometimes forcefully, to the point of death. He questions whether the Electro Archon doubts the criteria for the granting of visions since they're taking them from the people, and it appears that the Electro Archon is also no longer granting any new Electro Visions as well. Perhaps this is due to her pursuit of eternity. Kazuha also wants to know the answer to the Electro Archon's eternity. The time for the finals has begun, but when the pair return, the opponent is a no-show, and the prize for the tournament, the Masterless Vision, has been stolen! Kazuha asks the Traveler to accompany him, and he uses his special sense within nature to follow the thieves' trail. They find treasure hoarders and the thief, the other finalist from the tournament. Kazuha let him steal the vision, believing that maybe the vision would react to his desire to want it, but it didn't. The thief stole it because he knew he couldn't beat the Traveler in a fight. Kazuha threatens to torture the thief for stealing the vision, but it was again an attempt to get the vision to reawaken, but it didn't work either. He asks the Traveler to try and awaken it as well, but even they can't. Kazuha takes back the vision and explains its history.
He was once a good friend of mine. One day he asked me about a sword art of which he had heard, the Musono Hitotachi. I told him it can only be witnessed when divine punishment is administered. It is the pinnacle of the Raiden Shogun's skill, a symbol of ultimate power. But he replied, there must be one who can withstand it. There will always be those who dare to brave the lightning's glow. Then, the Vision Hunt Decree arrived. People's aspirations were stripped away as the Raiden Shogun began to construct her ideal of eternity. While I was fleeing from place to place, I heard that my friend had challenged the Vision Hunters to a duel before the throne. A solemn yet brutal challenge. The defeated face divine punishment, while the victors gain a second chance. Perhaps he thought he of all people should make a stand. Coming face to face with the Musono Hitotachi was all that he truly desired, after all. When I arrived at Tenshukaku, the duel was over. I heard his sentence of divine punishment, his severed blade hitting the ground. Perhaps that was the glory he had yearned to witness. In his last moments, what expression was on his face? Before I knew it, I had stepped forward and snatched the dying vision and was running from the scene. All I knew was that I mustn't let his hope, which burned so brightly, become buried among the ice-cold statue of a god.
They returned to the arena to tell Beidou of what occurred, but she's gone, and went to speak with Ningguang over her issues with the clash. Apparently, they have an interesting relationship. The Traveler is declared the champion of the clash, and Kazuha assures them that Beidou will keep up her end of the deal for sure. He says that the Alcor will need to undergo some maintenance prior to departure, since the Electro Archon is creating an unending tempest surrounding Inazuma. The ship needs to prepare for such a journey. He says that for him, in the meantime, he's going to travel across Liyue and search for a way to reignite the masterless vision of his lost friend. He warns the pair of the perilous journey awaiting them in Inazuma, leaving to go on his own quest. Inazuma presents new, unseen threats, but the Traveler isn't like they were at the start of their journey. They're no longer just wandering, but now have a more clear purpose. A closed nation, a tyrannical god, and the meaning of their siblings' words await them. The fog has lifted slightly, and the Traveler's sights are clearer than ever. The journey for the truth, a mystery of gods and ambitions, is about to begin. So that's it. That's Volume 1 of Genshin Impact's story. As that name suggests, and that ending suggests, there will obviously be more. But at the creation of this video, the full Inazuma arc hasn't finished yet, even though the story makes it seem like it has. There's still character stories and event stories to come, and so once that arc is clearly nearing its end, I'll begin work on Volume 2. Also, to me, a volume can be more than just a chapter of the story. I was initially going to end this video at the end of the prologue, but that didn't sit right with me. It didn't have a good ending to me, and it just didn't feel right to end it there. The Traveler meeting with their sibling and preparing to leave to Inazuma was a much more fulfilling stopping point, to me at least. But it's clear at this point, I'm definitely going to continue with this series, and I hope to see you there with me, especially if you watch this full video. Good lord, look at the length. But regardless of how much you watched, if it was the full thing or just a chapter, I want to thank you. Every time I release a video on this channel or my other, it feels unreal that there are people who watch and enjoy it. It's a wholly unique feeling to pour your heart into something and have people enjoy it. So again, thank you. And if you want to see more, you can subscribe to this as well as my other channel if you like. Oh, and I've also got a lot of socials as well. I have Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Yeah, I think that's it. I've got those, and they're all at Literal Maverick. So they're all the same. If you want to check those out, that'd be cool as well. But thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you next time.